pain equals suffering times resistance. How long can you resist suffering till you get to a better place? Think about it, the command. At what level are you willing to participate? What was the answer?
All in, all the time.
All in, all the time. We created a whole foundation based on that positive thought. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's a good day, whether it's a bad day. What am I willing to participate? Overlay that onto yourself. At what level am I willing to participate in my own well-being and my own success?
You're listening to The Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. I'm Bruno Fallon. I've spent my 4-decade career in some of the most elite units in the United States Special Operations community, where I learned that elite operators aren't made overnight. They're forged through hardship, discipline, and relentless drive. In each episode, I sit down with the most accomplished and innovative leaders in special operations, industry, coaching, and athletes of all disciplines. Let's jump right in. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. Still Bruno, still haven't been fired. I got a great guest today. This is, you know me, I like to try and bring in people that I know, that I've met, that have influenced my life. This is a little strike of gold to me, bringing this one in, because you guys have seen me have a lot of different people on the podcast, from special operations, law enforcement, human performance, and all that. But you know, my platform is typically either mindset, ethos, leadership, or human performance. I've got somebody here that hits a lot of those wickets, and I've known for a long time. I think we've known each other about 25 years, probably.
At least probably mid-90s.
Yeah. So anybody, I'd like to welcome TK Eppley. Welcome to the show.
Me. Thanks.
Yeah, it's great to have you. It's funny how we had our reunion. I met him at the bar, and anybody that knows me knows I'm referring to the gym, not a bar. But TK and I train in same gym here in Virginia Beach, and we crossed paths, and we both gave each other that. Yeah, I think that's who it is. Look, because it'd been a few years.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then we started shooting the shit. I think we talked for an hour straight the first time to catch up. But TK, one of the cool things, and what we're really going to get into here, TK is a retired 20-year SEAL, but I'm going to tell you that's a small segment of his life that influenced what he's done before and after. And when you start hearing him talk, you'll get it. So I'm trying to figure out, TK, was the first time that we probably met was probably me trying to land a helicopter on your head, I think, right?
You were successful. Yeah. Along with a lot of other guys, right? And
yeah.
Like we said earlier, that I think it's one of the most dangerous things that people don't really pay attention to.
Yeah.
Trying to get a helicopter around a boat, and one thing's being influenced by water and the other thing's influenced by air, and making it work. And when we were talking about it earlier, I started to think, well, that's a pretty good metaphor for life, business, and everything else, right? Because, mud and water, right? That kind of dirt and water, right? And you end up in a lot of that, right? And so it's people ask me like, do you miss it? And I'm like, no, because
but it influenced you to everything you've done because of all the exposure, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a little bit of bio on TK, and I'm going to try and not butcher this, but TK is someone that grew up and was going through school as an electrical engineer. And to be honest with you, in talking to him, it wasn't challenging to him. It wasn't the fact that it wasn't challenging with where he could take it. It's just that in his early manhood, it wasn't enough. And that's when he decided to do something different, and went in the Navy, went to the SEAL teams, and was there quite a long time. TK and I met at a unit here in Virginia Beach. And I remember the conversations we were having, that you were not just the typical operator. You were someone that was involved in the next fight, the next generation, researching a lot of new technology and stuff like that. And then you got out, and to be honest with you, didn't see you for years, but the name was always popping up. Oh, TK's doing this, or TK's doing that. But can I just ask you, you know how we are. We don't do the war porn thing, and we keep kind of what we did together overseas and everything. But how did your time in the military influence all the stuff you did afterward?
I'll start before that. I'll tell
Okay.
you how my early time in the military influenced everything else I did in the military. Because throughout my career, I was told, "Oh, don't go do that. That's not going to help your career. Don't go do this. Don't go do that." I'm one of the few guys that spend a tremendous amount of time on the maritime side of the command, and I did it because I liked it. Right, and I've there's a lot of guys out there's a lot of names I could give you where I had influence over getting to that side before they came. They were like, "Oh, I don't want to do this. I'm going to hate it," and then they were like, "Wow, this is really cool," and it morphed along the way. Um, when I first kind of when I was a kid, I mean, little kid, I used to spend most summers up at my grandparents' house in at the suburbs of Pittsburgh. And my dad, we lived in the western part of Virginia at the time. My dad was working for General Electric, and I always call it the hostage transfer. We would drive to Breezewood. For anybody on the East Coast, it's mid-Atlantic. That's a seminal place where you start going west, you start going north. But it was about an hour and a half away from where we lived. It was about an hour and a half away from where our grandparents lived, and I'd spend the time. Um, for years, I used to think it was because I enjoyed going there because my grandmother treated me like a little boy king. But as I got older, it was more the lessons I learned from my grandfather, who was a meter reader for the city. And this is back when meters were in the house, and he had to communicate with people, right? And I've told this story on other podcasts and in other public forums, but he was the first adult ever to ask my opinion and mean it.
Which is huge.
Right.
Like to try and open you up and see what you're about.
Right.
So
And going there, I hung out with him all the time. And but across the street was a girl that was my age. And we used to hang out together. And we're in the house one day, and it was her grandparents' house because her dad was out of town. And I went downstairs, and there was a set of dive tanks sitting there. What are these? And I don't, I'm 6 years old. I don't know what it is. It's some of my dad's. I'm like, all right. Next summer, I'm back. Her dad's home. Her dad was a SEAL. He graduated in class 36. Who I call Uncle Harry. His name's Harry Junk. And he kind of told me what the whole SEAL thing was about. Nugget in the back of your head when you were a little kid.
right.
Growing up, something I want to do. But in my house, you were going to college. And so I did. And I went to the University of Massachusetts. And like I said, I did not want to major in what I was majoring in, but because my parents were paying for it, and it was, in the era we grew up, you did what your parents told you to, and you didn't throw a fit. You get what you get. You don't throw a fit.
Unlike
We used to
today.
tell the kids, right? Well, I'm gonna disagree with you on some of that, and because I've had some amazing interactions with young people and work that I think we're going to talk about during our time together. And I got to the point where when I was working for a computer company called NEC, and I was bored. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I had blacktop roads all the way through college, and buddies of mine's dad owned a blacktop company, and you want to go make a day's wage, go out and stand there and blacktop a road. And so this tells you how long ago it was. A buddy of mine whose family was stupidly wealthy, he was a couple years older than I was. His family gave him a concert promotion company and a limousine company to help fund that. And so I used to drive limo for him every now and again. And it would be, bands from Bon Jovi to Motley Crue and everything like that. And he calls me and he's like, "Hey, I need you to help out." I'm like, "Nah, I'm busy. I don't want to do it." And he goes, "Dude, I'll pay you like $500," which back then was a lot of money. This is, early 80s, mid 80s. And it was Huey Lewis and the News. And I'm like, how bad can they be? Those guys are low key if you compared them to a lot of the rock bands of the day.
Right.
Great experience. Drove them, this is in Boston area. Drove them to the venue. They partied a little bit afterwards, nothing crazy. Dropped them off at the hotel. As I was cleaning up the limo, by the time I got done, it's breakfast. And I walk into this Parkway Diner. I don't even know if it's still there anymore. It was outside of Worcester, and it was two typical diner cars. A bunch of Italian guys in there arguing over who was going to cook the egg, all that kind of stuff. And USA Today was relatively new. I mean, it had just come out a year or so before that. And there was this little 1-inch block saying that the SEAL community wanting to up their numbers. And I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. 22 years old, about to be 28. I was like, called in sick to work, went to the recruiter. They jerked me around a little bit and took me to the classifier and all that stuff. And oh, well, if you're really serious about going to the Navy, you got to leave 9 days later. I'm like, okay. 9 days later, I'm on my way to Orlando going to
You
boot
did
camp. And yes, for those of you that are like, they don't have a boot camp in Orlando, I get it. They did back then. and uh, and it was an odd group of people. It was all the nuclear people, all the dive, like EOD, Navy, EOD, Navy divers, SEAL candidates, and all the women. Just a very eclectic mix
Yeah,
of
what a
people.
mix, right?
Right. And so then that led me to, go through training and do everything where I became a SEAL. How did this influence my career for the rest of it? When I was I hadn't even deployed for the first time for a 6-month deployment. And prior to 9/11, that's what you did, right? You weren't on this constant wartime footing where you were deploying and you knew you got off the airplane, you were going to start engaging the enemy. And I don't care what SEAL command you were at, that's what was going to happen.
Right.
And I get in a platoon, great guys. Then these are still some of my oldest friends that I've kept in touch with. In fact, my OIC is a mentor of mine, and we speak regularly, not as much as I'd like to lately, but we keep in contact. And one of the things that everybody's good at something in the SEAL team, right? And in life, right?
Right.
But I'll confine it to the SEAL team. There's a minimum standard that we have, right? And the standard is the standard, and you're going to meet that minimum standard. But everybody meets the minimum standard for jumping, shooting, diving. But some people are really good at diving and they're average at shooting. They meet the standard, but they're not the best at it. I was the best at diving and somewhat in sky. It's a spatial relationship thing. I just understood where my body was at on planet Earth.
Right.
We start gearing up and we're swimming for no reason. I don't know why, but at SEAL Team 2, we were defending Northern Europe at the time. That was our area of operation. So all we did was ski and dive. That's largely what platoons did back then.
Right.
And so we dove all the time. Come to find out, Manuel Noriega in Panama, had gotten his big boy pants on and thought he wanted to mess with the U.S. And we went down there. And I saw some amazing leadership leading up to that it took me years to quantify and break down, because as a young E4, I was just happy we were going to go get to do your job. And I was ignorant enough to think that that's what SEAL platoons did. You showed up, you went, within the first year you were there, you went somewhere and started creating mayhem and defending the nation. I didn't realize we hadn't done anything since effectively the 70s.
Yep.
Right. And we went down there and participated in Just Cause, and was one of the guys that was part of the team of folks that blew up one of Noriega's ships. And again, I figured with the amount of money we spent doing it, we did it all the time. We were blowing up stuff every left, right,
Right.
and I had no idea. The list of things I don't know is longer than the ones I do, and even today. But that list was exceedingly long back then. And there was an older gentleman, Ron Pierce, had a nickname we're not going to mention here on public. Nice public, nice people in public. But he came up to me while I was sitting there, kind of contemplating what went on, and was like, "Man, you guys made history." And I'm like, yeah. I mean, it was like, flew right over me.
Right.
Because, we've never done this before. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, though. I'm thinking internally, right?
Right.
I go back, just get on my deployment and everything like that. Commander Carley, in that moment, when he was the CO, he was he also then became the founder of AMTI.
Okay.
Right? Amazing leader, amazing leader, better human. That kind of person.
Right.
In that time, we had a great leadership group with he and the XO, a guy named Tom Katana, who had been an attorney. There's no better background for an XO of a SEAL team than having been an attorney, especially with all the stupid crap that team guys do.
Right.
Right. And I was on that list. Right. It was at a time when nobody knew who we were. We were such a small part of the Navy. In fact, when I graduated from BUD/S, there wasn't an admiral, let alone many, to decide where we deploy them around the world. And Naval Special Warfare Command had just been created. I mean, it was a thing, and people were trying to adjust to what that was going to mean.
Right.
Right. And we made up such as if you were an East Coast SEAL, you were part of the Atlantic Fleet. If you were thing. So it was a completely different animal than what people look at today, where I say the SEALs are no longer teams. It's an enterprise. It's a business, right? It's a trade that you go into. And went on and had my way. And we got the next CO was equally as gifted as Captain Williams. And, after that, I'd done a platoon or two. And so you feel more comfortable talking to senior people. Like when I showed up, Rudy was a master chief and I never talked to him.
Got it.
Right. But when Mikey Boynton showed up, he was a man's man who I felt I could walk, and he might tell you to get the hell out of his office.
Right. But
Stop bothering me.
He was approachable.
But he was approachable. And when the gifts he gave you were from his heart and they were real. Right. You might not like the way he said it, but if you walked away and said, I'm going to take away from this engagement thing, it's leadership 101.
Right.
Right. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want. And if you're an adult, you're going to think, well, sometimes I wasn't an adult. Sometimes I still wasn't an adult. I don't like what he said to me. Right? Hurt my feelings. I'm going to go in my cage and pout for a while, right? Or whatever it was you did back
whatever
then.
you did.
Right. And I just, Captain Williams was a really big rollerblader back then. And so those of us that like rollerblading, it was a group we kind of congregated, of which, just by positional authority was our nominal leader. And I said to him one day, I go, how do I have a great SEAL career? He goes, do the hard jobs and don't worry about anything. He goes, there's enough people wanting to go out and do all the sexy shit. He goes, do the hard shit. He goes, do the thing that nobody wants to do that has to be done.
Not to interrupt you, but I just had somebody on here that career Army guy, and the advice his first sergeant major gave him, which was along the same lines, was you'll know what needs to be done.
Right.
It's the same message.
But no, it's
the same message.
It is totally.
So
and so the fact that before I'd even deployed on with my first platoon on the first deployment, I had already seen, although very truncated compared to what everyone's experienced subsequent to 9/11, every job I took, I wasn't chasing that. Right. A lot of guys were going to SEAL Team 4 at the time because they were in Honduras and Central America and, fighting the narco stuff and all that stuff. And so there was a lot of people, everybody was chasing something. There was a piece about it for me. It was like, okay, this is what it is. It'll come again. Right. And I deployed and the first Gulf War happened. Like we're sitting in Denmark having a good time working for 6th Fleet. Next thing you know, Saddam rolls into Kuwait. We're on an airplane back to Scotland to fly to the thing. Get in the next platoon, we go right back over there. And then I come back, I go to the command, and then the world changed. Eastern Europe was hot all through the 90s. And then, tragically 9/11 happened and everything that's gone on since then. And so it's a full career. But again, it was like, I didn't look to do, when you talk about, new technology and building things and stuff like that, to me, it interests me. Right.
No, it's very interesting. And the one cool thing is we have a similar timestamp, if you will. I came in a few years before you, obviously, and stayed a few years after you, just because I had a longer career. But you're right. That period in history, and for me, it started with the Grenada era, and went through where 9/11, I hate to use this word, became routine. Like going to combat was what you did.
Right.
It was amazing to watch how functionally, not just SOF, but the entire U.S. military changed.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but no, anyhow.
Think about this. So late last year, I'd gotten a call from one of the guys that used to work at Damag, retired, and they have a civilian position for a deputy ops officer at all the SEAL teams. And he calls me up and he's like, hey, can you come over here and talk to the guys at SEAL Team 2? I'm like, what about? And they go, what it's like to do a regular deployment. And I will tell you that for those folks and the guys that know me really well, I always say I have a love-hate relationship with the community. It more borders on hatred. It doesn't border on hatred, but it borders on ambivalence now, where do I want people to get hurt and all this? No. And do I want to know the people that are important to me, their health? But it's what I did. It's not who I am. And I tell prospective employers now, if you think bringing me here for anything I did as a SEAL is the right idea, you're tragically mistaken. I've been out of the Navy this year as long as I was in the Navy. Right. The reason I got out at 20 is because I was 42 years old, about to be 43. And I was like, if I don't get out now and I do another 10 at 52, who's going to want to hire me? And what's that second act look like?
Right.
Right. That in general terms for people, that's how I think. I don't think about tomorrow. I think about, there's a foundation or a society out there. They're called the Long Now Foundation, and they contemplate problems 10,000 years from now. I contemplate them within my lifetime, but how far out can I look and say, what's the positive impact of what I do today in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
No, I get that. And,
Right?
and it's all how you're wired. And I truly get, one of the reasons I have you on this podcast is like a General Scott Miller, like a Mark O'Neill and those guys, is you think and have actually operated at much, much higher levels than a lot of guys, and we're going to get to you being, president of a company and engaging with CEOs and owners and all that. But some people, and I am this guy, some people, the juice of the brotherhood, the juice of the mission, every time I started looking at private sector and the opportunities, it was not sexy or attractive because I wanted to be surrounded by the guys and I wanted to be on the mission. And that's how I was able to do it for a 40-year career, combining both the, government side and the military
God
side.
bless you.
Yeah, God bless me, but there's also a statement in there that it showed that I was also a little unwilling to leave the protection of the circle. And I know that. And, I didn't make that move into private sector until freaking age 57.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
That's why when we
So-
reconnected, I was thinking, I was like doing the dots. I'm like, I know he's been working there forever and we're about the same age, like
Yeah.
within a year at least.
Yeah.
When I went back over to SEAL Team 2 to have a chat with him, number one, it was funny because not one person at that command was on active duty on 9/11. They were all too young,
Right.
including the CO and the CMC.
Got it.
Right. And when I went there, they know how to get to me. I'm a history guy. I like what mistakes we made yesterday are the ones that we're going to make again unless we revisit them periodically. They had all the paperwork out for stuff that I did when I was there. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I think at some point they were like, well, he's not as excited about it as thing. Well, I know how this ends.
Right.
I know how this book ends, right?
Right.
And but I was appreciative of that, right?
Right.
And I had them asking me questions about. There's a board with all the COs and all the command masters, and I was like, I knew like the first half of it intimately,
Right.
right? And they were like, wow, and Brian, there were my pictures up on the wall and stuff like that, and it was like, and somebody's like said to me afterwards, they go, that must have been a big ego boost. I'm like, I said, no, I said if. The way you remember J.J. Johnson, right?
Oh,
yeah. Was at the command from the Gold Star guy.
Yep.
He went back. He went back over there. I think as a 9.
Yep.
I don't know what he was doing over there. It's probably a CMC because he's a really smart, gifted dude. And
He actually came back into training, but yeah.
Yeah, he should have a lot he should have a lot of influence over what we do because he's earned that right. And he went there and made it look homey. But the way he did it, I'm in a long line of people who've done great things. I had my second in the light, my 15 minutes when I was there. And to me, it's like when you get the opportunity, most people that bitch about what they didn't get to do, they weren't in the right place at the right time. Right? It's not that they weren't competent, they weren't, qualified or anything. You weren't there at the right time.
Right.
Right. The one thing I would never allow is if you're on shore duty, don't complain about not going to combat. You've told people you don't want to go.
Right. Because you took that duty.
Right. And for the guys that were there and at the time their platoon just didn't get called. The opportunities were narrow and they were 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? And of that 2 weeks, about 10 days of that, we farted around down there. Right.
It exists everywhere.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
that's good. But that's in SOF in general, I think as the whole of SOCOM, people feel that way and they should, right? Because the reason that you do this is to operate at the highest level. And I think it's less about seeking fame. It's about validating what you've done that you can play the game.
Right.
Right. And I think that's really what it is. And so for the rest of my life, I never changed it. So chased it. And I was involved in everything. Right. But I had a great time. But at some point it was like, and I'll say this, and the people that were involved, they don't really care anymore. The last 2.5 years of my career were the worst. Absolutely worst.
But why?
I went down to targeting, and the Olympics were coming up in 2004, and we had to do all the ships, ports and harbors and everything like that. At the time, when I showed up, the gentleman that was running GS, whatever it was, retired Master Chief, I liked him. He was good.
I actually remember all this time. Okay.
Right. And we got along and everything like that. And his hook was, hey, if you do a great job for me, I'll get you a GS-12 job. I'm like, I wouldn't get out of bed for GS-12 money.
Right.
And that was even before I knew exactly what it was. Right.
Right.
Yeah. But I know it's like, it can't be that much.
Right.
Right. And plus I was that guy, like before we went on, I had the Wile E. Coyote hole I wanted to cut in the fence.
Right.
And when he retired, or when he finally left, I don't know if he retired again from being a GS, but when he finally moved on, we got a series of warrant officers and other things, and that the place was largely filled with I was the only SEAL when I got down there.
And I remember that. Yep.
Right. There was a couple retired guys, but most of it was AutoCAD guys that we had gotten from the company that built the software for us. And then some other retired guys that were okay. And then a few that were brought back that one of them, the guy met this lady at Walmart or something and hit it off, and then she's there. Every one of them knew more than I knew about maritime stuff. And I say that with all the sarcasm I can muster in my being.
Gotcha.
Right? I was a Coast Guard captain. I had 3,200 hours driving those boats.
Right.
I feel it every day. Right? But I wouldn't have traded a minute of doing it. And it became this antagonistic thing. And then I get two team guys. Both had been injured, and I got them while they were rehabbing because I needed the bodies that we were on ships videotaping stuff that they had the right eye for. Then we got a warrant officer down there that he was a CW4 busy trying to make CW5. He didn't care what I had to say or anything like that. I got a guy who was a former SF guy who did the same type of work, but for the Army at the time. Pathological in his inability to tell the truth. Like told me, I got dropped medically from the boys down at Bragg. I mean, I used to work in training at the command. I called my counterpart down there and said, hey, just like we have a historical record of why people got dropped, because you need to for
Right.
all the right purposes. Like I know he quit on the selection. Right. And every one of those people wanted to tell me what I didn't know. And I went back up and I said, why did you guys send me down here?
Right.
Right. And it got to a point where they came up with a requirement, and where myself and the other team guy needed to know a level of AutoCAD that we weren't privy to. So I said, we're going to go to the school. And warrant officer said, no, you're not. I'm like, really? You think that's what you think? And he was going back overseas to work the jock or whatever so he could try to make W5, right? And he left on a Sunday. On Monday, I was on my way to DC with another team guy to do this. What we found when we got up there was the product we had was very truncated. This is what they ended up trying to hide. But we go through and we do everything. We got to go for the Olympics. And the reason I got sent down there is because we had to talk to the Olympic Committee, and none of these other folks could. Because we were indemnifying something that was unindemnifiable.
Right.
The security of the port of Piraeus and it. Best job, we do the best we can, but just understand there's a limit to what you can do, right? And you have to put it that way. We get back, and now SOCOM doesn't care what we do anymore, because we did the Super Bowl right after that, and it was largely the same platforms down in Jacksonville doing the same. We come back and nobody cares. So I start taking the product of our work and I put it in a shoebox. I don't turn it in. And I'm doing this on purpose. And people are like, hey, you got to get this work done. You got to do this. I'm like, okay. I'm not going to listen. All right? I mean, go ask anybody that knows me. Once I get obstinate, it's done. And I dug my feet in. And the last day I was there, I took that shoebox. I got everybody in there in the conference room. I pushed it into the middle of the room. They're like, what's that? I go, that's every bit of work you said I didn't do for the last year. Here's my point. You guys are irrelevant. I was going to retire in an hour.
Right.
And they were like, what do you mean? I go, nobody's asked you for the product of your work in a year. It means no one cares.
It's a bold statement, though. You're
And
right. You're right.
I kicked you dragging and screaming into the 21st century. And the reason you didn't want to use the latest AutoCAD was because you didn't know how to use it.
Right.
And you didn't want us to go because then we would know more than you knew. And where in the history of spec war or spec ops in general were you not allowed to go become more competent at your job? And the really bizarre part about it was I had a SEAL telling me I couldn't go. I didn't listen to him. But one of the folks called overseas and told on me the day I left.
Shock.
Yeah. And I went to the CO and said, hey, here's what I'm doing. He's like, yeah, okay. And I had he used to be a helicopter pilot. In that day that was an enlisted guy, then he became a helicopter pilot.
Yep.
He ran all of that stuff down. So he was our backstop.
Yep.
And he was a great guy. He goes, yeah, don't worry about that. I'll take care of it.
No, I actually remember those days, and it's kind of funny because I also remember the void when you were gone after the Olympics and everything, and we were spinning up doing some cruise ship work.
Yeah.
And it was interesting trying to get the work done. So,
well, because we did one right after it was. Remember we did that? It was like a car carrier or something like that.
mhm.
I had a lot of amazing dudes. I'm going to lead out of the military with this, but I had a lot of amazing contractors that worked directly on the team to help us get these done. And they were from a company called Blackbird.
Yep.
Just amazing intellect, fun dudes to be around. Had the same sense of humor for the most part that we had. They could take a joke.
Yep.
Right.
They're very, I remember the Blackbird course where you'd come out of there and,
well, this was before that.
Oh,
I
okay.
was still in active duty, and this is
Okay.
how I got introduced to it, right? And we went and got that ship down in Charleston. Started talking. The captain was a British guy, and I said, "Where you from?" He goes, "Oh, Poole." Well, I had the exchange billet years before that, and we lived in Poole. And he goes, "So what are you doing over here?" He goes, "Oh, I was on the advice of my wife, on the advice of my divorce attorney. I should get out of the country for a while." Right? Which what a great line, right?
Right.
And so we start going. We get in there, and their computer system's all messed up. So one of the Blackbird guys goes and fixes it. Right? Okay, so it took 2 hours out of his day. You know what? When we wanted something done,
It was done.
we had
You
no
had rapport
problem.
now.
Right.
You had rapport.
And so then when the ship, we went back and got the ship, we brought it back up to the beach. We put 300 reservists on there to be role players and everything like that. A name that took care of all the dudes.
Yep.
I took care of making sure the ship was in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
And it worked.
It worked.
Right. And everything was fine.
Right.
Right. So, I retire and parted around for about a year or so trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then Blackbird guys started calling. We're building this course, blah, blah, blah. You want to come do it? And I know, Ryan Engold is the CEO of ADS. He was there at the time. He had to get out early because he broke his neck. And then Aaron Baldwin, a couple other, guys that are just great friends of mine. And we worked together. I mean, Aaron and I probably worked together individually overseas, just two of us or the two of us with a couple other dudes, more than anybody.
Now, Aaron was instrumental in the initial Iraq invasion when he was my main go-to guy for the squadron. We were planning all the initial stuff.
Yeah. Unbelievable intellect on him. You know what I mean? It's like we joke around a lot, and it's the ribbing is constant, but we've just been together for so
He got
long.
hurt
It's
pretty
like
bad on a jump too, didn't he?
now it was one of those powered parachutes.
Yes.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
had crashed one of the powered parachutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
right before he retired.
Yep.
Right, and talk about a guy that said, "Hey, I'm not going to walk around like a cripple with the cowboy walk. I'm going to fix myself."
Right.
And what I think I'm not talking about other SEAL, but in general, the general public doesn't do is they get older, they accept what happens to them. They don't try to fight it. Kind of like we every day we're in there trying to deal with that. But so I went over to Blackbird, and they were building the course. Aaron had been there. Aaron was went there right when he retired, and he was on another project for them, and he was allowed to come over and do that. And this kind of is going to lead me into some leadership. I went to work there, started really getting involved, jumping back into technology in a way. And frankly, as much as I detested being, and I didn't detest the job, I detested the people I was with. Right? And that was the first time in my SEAL career I went somewhere and I was like, I don't like anybody I'm working with. I had my Intel guy and largely the Blackbird guy. I got along with everybody else. I didn't really care. Right. And it wasn't the people that were going out on the surveys. It was the staff behind it. Right. And I don't care if they like that or not. That's just the way I felt. And that's what it was. So I get out and I start really we're digging into technology. And again, a couple of those guys were engineers for us when we were a thing, and they're amazing. I mean, one of the guys I had dinner with him last Friday. I mean, I was the best man in his wedding, and one of the most intelligent human beings I've ever met in my life, aside from being one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And he's doing things right now for the world that are going to fundamentally change how we compute and how we stay secure while we compute. And he's fine with it being anonymous. He doesn't care.
That's awesome.
Right? Deed, not glory.
I love
Right?
it.
It goes to that, right?
Yeah.
And Aaron and I used to go the full 15 rounds because there were things he wanted to do a certain way. There was things I wanted to do a certain way. And I can remember walking in, and we had a guy that had been one of the divers at the command who came, a really smart young man named Morgan. And I walked in. I'd been somewhere teaching on Friday. I drove back, got my horse and drove back and walked in. I go, everybody out. It's time to go home. And they're like, no, I still got to finish up. And Morgan's like, nope, it's time to get out. Doors are getting slammed and we're going to have a conversation. Right. But it never affected our friendship.
Right.
Right. So when I got to Blackbird, they were starting the course, but there was no direction to it. I wasn't there to provide direction. I was there, hey, we're going to need somebody else to help teach. Right. And Aaron had a great idea, and that was to make it the same price as it costs to go to IT Dojo to learn how to use Windows, because an E5 could pay for it, an impact card, and all,
Right.
all the things you used to do to get things paid for.
Right.
And Ryan was using his entrepreneurial intellect to make it like it was our own business. Here's the leadership gift. The CEO at the time of Blackbird and the founder, one of the three founders, is a lady named Peggy Steyer. One of my favorite people on the effing planet. And I will say this out loud, and I don't know whether I've ever said it to her personally, but there were times where I probably abused her good nature because I didn't understand what it took at the time to do what she was doing.
Got it.
Right? And to look back on it. Peggy wanted to know what everybody was doing. She left us alone. I always say we built a startup. We had a startup down there. The only thing is we got paid every 2 weeks by somebody, some force from the ether. A check showed up in my bank account every 2 weeks. Right? Our direct VP was a former Ranger commander. His last job was SOCOM Legislative Affairs.
Got it.
I mean, so our ability to get into places, and Peggy hired amazing people. The other two founders were both amazing people as well, but Peggy was the driving force for what went on. As it got bigger and we got bigger, we had one class a month. Then it was two classes. Then by the time I left, we were doing 100 plus classes a year.
A lot.
Right? Well, we had, again, more instructors, more time.
Right.
And what we were being asked to do was a testament to how the customers trusted us. Can you build us this? Can you do this? I remember because when I started, it was flip phone still. There was no smartphone. Right?
I do remember.
And when the smartphone came out, and before, you think earlier on, when we wanted to get after somebody's flip phone, we would have to send them a text message and you'd have to socially engineer them. And when somebody got the message that says, do you want to download this update? Yes or no. Well, yes meant yes and no meant yes. And then we got you.
Right.
The tools today are all I need is your phone number and I own you.
Right.
You're never going to tell. They're amazing. They're amazing products, right? If used in the right hands, right? So we started to grow. And even when I was up in DC and we were teaching one of the IC customers, they said, all this stuff you guys do with computers, can you do it with phones? Of course we can. I have no idea whether we can do it or not.
Right.
But I said
the answer was yes.
Well, I said, it's going to take me about 2 months to do this. He goes, oh yeah, I know you guys are teaching classes. You're busy all the time. No, I got to go figure it out.
Right.
And went to Peggy and said, hey, and she's like, she had folks that she knew at T-Mobile or, that they knew at things. And so I got to kind of go around to the bazaars, kind of figure this out. And again, it was taking a very complex subject. I think you went some of the training and making it in plain spoken English so that everybody could understand. And from a command perspective or from a soft perspective, when the guys would come in and say, hey, can you teach us how to crack a password? Aaron and I was first to think, why?
Right.
And it would always be that dumb hooker, blah, blah, blah. Okay,
Right.
that's a low grade felony, so we're not going to do that. But then we started thinking and said, if we teach them how to make a password or how to crack passwords, what we're doing is showing them what bad passwords look like. And this is before you had Google Authenticator, all these password management tools and everything like that.
Right.
And so we got them to do command line. Everybody's like, oh, they'll never be able to do command line. And I'm like, you have no idea the ingenious, like the criminally industrious nature of team guys, especially if another team guy is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, that guy figured it out. I can figure it out. There's the
Right.
raw ego coming out.
Right.
Well, Peggy, over time, provided such value that she probably never recognized. And I know she was petrified every time one of us got up on stage and started talking, because frankly, she's used to talking to the group of people I talk to now.
Right.
And I would never talk to them today the way I spoke to our clients back then.
Right.
I mean, we did a business development thing for 2.5 days, and it was invite everybody in DC. You can send 2 people. And we have 12, 15 people. And these 2 FBI guys were the computer guys. And they were supposed to be working on folks that lived here that didn't need to be living here. And I said, how are you doing that? And when they started, the blood drained out of my head, because they were basically asking by their actions for bad guys to show up at their house and do bad things.
Got it.
Right? Because it wasn't that hard to train.
Right.
Peggy was in the audience, and I broke a computer over my knee and go, don't ever use that one again.
Right.
Right. But knowing full well I had one that looked almost exactly like it, my bag, that I could really give up if thing. But it was that. Peggy came to me one day, and the company had exploded after 9/11, because what we did company-wide, not just our little piece of the pie, but the company et al. Were doing amazing things for the US. And these contracts started showing up and people started showing up. You know, we went from, like, I was employee 80. I mean, I know employee number 5.
Right.
Right? I know employee number 14, that kind of thing. To now there's hundreds and hundreds of people working. We used to get monthly allowance per person, number of dollars to buy snacks and coffee and that kind of thing. Well, down here at the beach, we bought protein shakes and power bars and whatever it was of the day that was thing. I was up in DC working, and walking down the hall, she sees me, pulls me into her office. She's like, hey, what's up with this? And I go, well, did we spend more than the per man? She says, no, but you're not buying snacks, you're buying meals. I go, no, it says meal replacement shake, but that's just what a Mileplex shake is. It's a protein shake. I said, I walk out of class, I drink one, I go back into class. Well, and I said, and we just don't eat that stuff, so we're buying what we eat. She's like, okay. And at the point, I'm like thinking to myself, you got 1,000 people working for you. I don't know what the exact number was, but it was a lot more than when I showed up.
Right.
And enough to occupy a 5-story building in DC or in Herndon. And I was like, Peggy, there's got to be somebody. And she probably doesn't even remember this, because I was one conversation of 100 she had that day.
Right.
Right. And I was like, Peggy, there's got to be somebody that keeps track of this, right? That's making about 50 grand a year that is not trying to steer.
And it shouldn't be you.
The free, well, that was what I was driving at. And she's like, TK, I'll tell you this. She goes, you know what? You came here at a time where I know your family. I know their names. I know a little bit about your background, more than most people do. And that's with all of those people. I see people now, I have no idea who they are. She goes, and I also check all the travel vouchers. This is the way I know what we're doing, how we're helping people, who we're helping. And it was just an invaluable lesson. It's like, hey, I don't care where you're at in the company. And yes, you can give work to other people, but at some point there's no substitute for understanding what your people are doing for whom, to give you the context of why you do it.
Right.
To me, that is one of the great lessons I learned early on. I still didn't know how to apply it, because I'm not that smart most days. And as I moved on from there, and I don't think I executed a great dismount when I left Blackbird, right?
Right.
But it was what it was. I gave him 2 weeks notice, and I've learned a lot since about how to do that better. And went to work for at post startup. They'd already taken money, but they were growing. They were building secure voice messaging and phone. It was in a white space. It was for enterprise. Nobody There was none of Zoom. I'll tell you how long ago it was. We were one of Zoom's first enterprise customers,
Gotcha.
right?
Right.
And so I'd had Peggy as an example of what an amazing leader should be. Guy that hired me we went through Green Team together, and he got to a point where it was getting big and it was out of control and things like that. Being able to teach, I'll tell people is I don't know everything about technology, but when you're BSing me, I know you're BSing. Right? I think as an executive leader, that's the level of depth you need in any subject. Is I don't need to know everything, but I need to know when you're not telling me the truth or you don't know what you're doing.
You don't know what you're talking
Right?
about. Right.
And so this company got bigger and kind of get out of control. The board's like, okay, we can't keep doing what we're doing. And I'll give the founder credit is he put his ego aside and said, I'm going to step down as the CEO. You're still the founder, right? And you can't take that away from somebody. I'm going to go on the board and we're going to go get what they call professional management. I was excited because now, again, it's going to be another opportunity to learn. I came there, I was in ops, I was the VP of ops, and because that was the appropriate title for the size company we had. And we see the resume of this guy. He's amazing. Ivy League educated, undergrad and grad, built a company, sold it for 6X, just came off that. I'm like, dude, this will be awesome. What a great chance to learn. He's going to save the company. How they got him was to lie to him. Right. And I used to want, because we had a presence overseas and for tax purposes and more for privacy laws and things like that. And I wasn't invited to that meeting when they were going to meet him. And I was kind of like, well, wait a second. Start reading. He couldn't replace anybody except for the COO, which effectively was my job. I was a VP of ops. But talked to Mike, and when he came back, he goes, no, he's got another job in mind for you. He's going to be here today. He'll tell you. Like, okay. Effectively, he made me the chief of staff. He didn't know what that looked like, but really what it was chief operating officer plus, blocking and tackling for everything else.
Right.
Instantly, we kind of hit it off instantly, right? If for no other reason than when he would have one-on-ones with people, I was always in the room. And it was a learning opportunity for me, right? For him, it was a chance to take notes to make sure everything was and that when he wasn't around, I understood the context of which things were articulated. And he would tell people I was his guy, right? And there was myself and a couple other dudes that were SEALs that worked there. And a couple of former SAS guys that worked there. And he loved having us. Intellectually, one of the strongest people on planet Earth. And could he be a Fortune 50 CEO intellectually tomorrow? He didn't have any emotional intelligence whatsoever. It took me more than a minute to figure this out. He extended an amazing amount of courtesy to me.
Right.
Every night we'd go back to the condo. Had a whiteboard I dragged in. We had 2 condos. I was in one and then he was in the other. And we had people traveling in and out would stay. And it saved a lot of money on hotels. And he every night here's how you financially engineer a business. He goes, and his statement was like, I went to Wharton for the network. I didn't go for anything I learned. He goes, everything I'm telling you is stuff I've learned on the job. From his life's experience, plus now having been a multiple CEO and stuff like that.
Right.
And frankly, the reason I can go into a company today, and like we were saying off air, I don't show up when everything's working right. I'm the dumpster fire guy.
Right.
Right? After everything's gone wrong and you've prayed to whatever deity you pray to and your business is going I'm the guy that shows up.
You're the one that gets called.
Either because people that invested money in it have said, let's do this, or last one was a headhunter called, right? And, but what I noticed was there was a pathological nature towards the following. One, every idea that was generated within the company by virtue of his position as the CEO became his intellectual property, right? So every idea was his.
Right.
Right? Not how to build a team in my mind.
Absolutely not.
Right? It was never my experience that's the way it works.
No, it's not.
Right?
Right.
And anybody else that's been around I don't think it is. That he was just a straight up bully. He would overpay people. Because I got this big pay raise when he came in. He's like, oh, he's paying all these people. I'm like, all right, cool. And what it turns out is he overpays you so that you can't leave. And so you've kind of got to, I only know one person that's been in his network for 20 plus years that he hasn't let go. And then he'll go back and get him again. And people keep going back to that. It's this abusive relationship thing, right? But again, it bothers me so much because the intellect's there, right? And you're just like, dude, just give up on this little piece right here and you could be Jamie Dimon.
Right.
Right. He has that level of intellect. Right. And so I left that company, after a few years, it was time. And they had never made me sign an NDA or anything like that. So I went right to one of our competitors. And again, we had a guy that really smart. I always joke around, like when they talk about his family name, they're always talking about his smarter, more engaging brother. And that's what I would say to him, right? And it's just an inside joke that we had, right? A really smart guy, but again, sometimes just didn't know when to stop. Like went and did an event and told the chief of staff of the Army he was wrong, like outwardly in front of a bunch of people. That's something you pull this guy aside and say, hey, sir, have you considered another option?
Right.
Right.
The whole task.
I know you're, and I didn't have that front. Trust me, I'm not busting people's ass about it because I certainly didn't have that level of gravitas. Right. And so there was a time, and when I left that I was told I was blackballed by that one guy, right? Because I walked away kind of from the family. And, okay. So I dealt with that. I didn't deal with it great every day of the week, but I dealt with it. I was out in Colorado interviewing to be the CEO for a med tech. And while I'm sitting in there, I'm going, this is 4 years of FDA paperwork before we can even sell one thing. That's the minimum, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I got to be nice. And I said, hey, let me think about it. Driving to the airport, I got a call from this guy. Hey, your buddy Dan gave me your name. Have you ever thought about being the CEO of an aerospace company? Yeah. I said, how big? Like, how big are the airplanes? Group 2, group 3, right?
Right.
And I'm like, okay. I said, what do I need to do? He's like, well, let's talk for a while. Kind of gave him, thing. 2 days later, I'm interviewing via Zoom. And I wasn't going to take the job. And I didn't tell them that. And they're like, we're just going through the process. So, hey, why don't you fly to Ann Arbor and go check out the business? Right? I'm like, all right.
Smart move, though.
Great idea.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, smart move. You got to see the environment.
I knew the founder was a former medical school student who wanted he was a dreamer. Right? He wanted to be able to give vaccines and medicines to the developing world. Well, guess what? There's not a foundation on earth that'll make a company wealthy doing that kind of humanitarian work. You have to do that after you've gotten where you've gotten.
Right.
And he was a control freak. I found out later. I went in there and they sent me, one thing I didn't really enjoy was they sent me in there under the guise that I was a potential investor. And I've been around that enough and worked with enough. It's easy to do. I walked in, I looked at the circuit. The first thing I did was pull up the lid of this thing and looked at the circuit board. It was a disaster. I'm like, oh boy. And I literally in my head, I'm like, I'm not working here. And then I took the time to walk around and start talking to the young folks. I walked out of there and I couldn't have taken that job fast, having talked to them.
Really?
Right. And I said, when I was walking out and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is the group of people that I can exercise everything I've ever told anybody I've consulted for, anybody that would listen. This is how we're going to run a business, and this is what's going to make us successful.
What was the key trigger that had you see that?
My head of design, and I'm going to say this about him, but it reflects everybody else. They were gifted, but they were beat down. Right? Now, having said that, my predecessor built the best drone he could afford with the money he had. Right? And that's what he got. I was told I was going to get X amount of money plus another bucket of money. And so we're going to go down that path.
Right.
Right. And again, from having done this a number of times, I knew now I'm smart enough to go, oh, I'll take the job. And then you get there. Oh, by the way, we don't have any money. I talked about the money beforehand. They committed to a certain dollar amount. and then I went on my way. Head of design, for example, had worked for Scaled Composites. Scaled Composites built Earthship 1. He's forgotten more about how to build an airplane. He's
Right.
shooting crap into space,
Right.
right? Gifted guy, 30-ish, mid-30s. Go to the head of software engineering. He had worked at Roush Racing. He was doing firmware. You got pulling a pit stop. They'd plug it in, bam, and send somebody back out there 250 miles an hour, hoping that firmware worked and it didn't drive them into turn 4. That's some huevos right there.
Right.
Little smaller guy, really, hardcore engineer, but had stones the size of church bells because he was willing to stand on what he built.
Right.
And I walked around and everybody at every position was competent, comfortable. They were nice to be around. The guy that was my flight director and he had basically been a big part of why the Air Force uses drones for nuclear security now. I'm like, dude, if I can remotely corral these people to do anything productive, we're going to be great.
Give me a rocket ship.
Right.
Yep.
And that I think is kind of like the tenet of where it is, because now parent company was, out in the West Coast somewhere. I had no adult supervision on a day-to-day basis. Right. And it's funny, I'd written this down because I at some point I can ramble and quantify, but I want to do a little bit of kind of where it is, because people ask me all the time, well, how did you make that a success? You know who Mel Robbins is?
Yep.
She wrote that book, about Let Them, right? And it's great, but she's a great voice. She has a statement. It's called "Leaders Bring the Weather." Right? Positive, negative. You either bring sunshine, you bring thunder, you bring hatred and discontent, you bring a great working environment.
Right. That's a fact. That is a fact.
Right? That's it. And we've all worked for both sides of that coin.
That's right.
Right? Where you sit in a meeting and go, I can't believe somebody just said that. Or, in the obverse, it's like, I would have never thought of that. Man's a genius. Or the woman's a genius. Let's get out of here. Right?
Yeah.
Well, most things in life, they're not hard. They're complex. And people conflate that all the time. Learning how to fly a helicopter is not hard. It's complex.
Right.
Right? You got your feet moving, your hands moving. I got to think about this. I got wind. I got to talk to somebody.
Right.
I got a guy over here that, is screaming in my ear about something else. I got a crew chief that's yelling at me. Right? The thing, I'm worried about dropping whatever is hanging under my airplane. I got people shooting at me. It's not hard. It's complex.
Right.
And take almost any job on earth, including leadership, and it's not hard, but it's complex because you don't have robots. You have human beings, and everybody, I always say, everybody's equal. They're not the same. So how I talk to one person to get them motivated is not how I talk to the next. And understanding that is a skill. And this is what I tell team guys, you all have these skills innate into you, right? And a lot of you don't want to use them. Right? For whatever reason, it's a comfort thing, right? As a leader, if your attitude sucks every day when you show up, how do you think that rolls out to everyone else?
Right.
Right. And I don't care. I'm to this point now where I don't care what is happening to me personally, because I've got to answer to the board. I got to answer to the leadership of the parent company, whatever it is. They're never going to hear about that. Why? Because it interrupts their day from them being great, right? And the other thing too is it's always your job to clearly define what success looks like, right? When you take over a business, a good analogy is this: if somebody comes to me and says, and I've heard this before, and I like it and I've used it, says, hey, how long is it going to take to change the culture? I'm like 20 years, but there's a lot of things we can fix on the way to start making money and to start doing the right thing as the culture changes. Number one, you're telling the board, you're not telling them what they want to hear, you're telling them what they need to hear. That culture doesn't change overnight. Culture's a function of positive, repetitive reinforcement, and proving what you say is what you'll do.
Right.
Right? And you go in and you pick 2 or 3 things. Here's the behaviors will not tolerate. Here's the behaviors, right? Or here's the outcomes that we want to think. And then when people do the wrong thing, based on the level of kind of where they're at, it's open that's considered unacceptable, right? And you're not a behind the closed door guy,
Right.
right? I had one meeting a week, 45 minutes, and I spoke last. The quickest way to be unsuccessful is to walk into a meeting as a leader and start talking. Trust me, that was a hard one for me. For the folks that know me out there, like that was a really hard one, because people walk in and say, "Hey, you've got a title on an email." Everybody knows what you're going to talk about, and they've got their own opinion. If I walk in and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you guys think?" Trees bend to the sun, right? People want to please the boss. I don't want you to please me. I want you to do the right thing.
Right.
Right. The most pleasing thing you can do for me as a leader is to be super effing competent and tell me when I'm wrong. That takes a long time to get people to trust that you're not going to snap and blow a gasket.
You're right. That is a fundamental of not just leadership, but being involved in a team. Hey, this is Bruno, and you've been watching the Hot Wash by Born Primitive Tactical. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our podcast. And thanks for watching. Now back to the podcast. I love what you're saying here, because the biggest concern I had leaving the 40 years of the government DoD space was operating in the private sector. And I took what I thought were the leadership tenets from some of the greatest people I've been around. And you're right. Sometimes you just have to bite your tongue and listen and not correct. Hear them out. Hear their whole thing
Correct.
out. Because what might start out as I'm absolutely fucking not doing that, once you clearly understand what they're trying to convey to you, you might be like, they're actually onto something here.
But that's your job.
That's right.
To start, here's what success looks like, and clearly define that.
Yes.
So that you've given them a North Star.
Yes. 100%.
Right. Once you do that, let them loose.
Let them go.
Right. I tell people all the time, like the parent company used to give me crap all the time. Like when I was leaving, they were angry. And so, because I just basically one day packed up and said, I'm done. I had enough of this. I'm done. And it had nothing to do with the team. It had to do with the other externalities. And so the CEO of the parent company said, it doesn't seem like you do a lot here. And he made the mistake of saying it in front of everyone. The team went mental.
Right.
That's when I knew over time we had done the right thing.
You'd built,
right?
Exactly,
Not me.
Exactly.
We had done the right thing as a team. We were all in it together, right? They felt comfortable making fun of me.
Right.
Right. I felt, they had in the big engineering space, and I've had guys who were postdoctoral PhDs in aerospace and computational and analytics and stuff like that. I mean, we had some big brains there. And one of the non-engineers was in there, and the discussion of prime numbers came. And she was like, I'll just talk about prime numbers. Why don't we just get rid of prime numbers? And I was like, I was like, what? I go, you understand, because now she hit on something, encryption and stuff like that, like things I used to teach you guys. I know about this, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, you understand, if we get rid of prime numbers, we don't have encryption. You can't do online shopping, online banking, Amazon goes away, all this stuff. And then I made a mistake, because they had a board on the board. It was geekiest thing said in a week. My name was never up there. Was thing.
Right.
I go, I can't believe you don't have a favorite prime number. And then the rain came.
Got it.
They were like, you have a favorite prime number? I'm like, oh. And they're like, well, what is it? And I'm like, 37. And they're like, why? I go, because 73 is also a prime number, inverse. 3 and 7 are both prime numbers. And the binary representation of 37 and 73 is a palindrome. They were like, that goes on the board, right? But it was, well, you're not going to run from that. You're not going to hide from it, right? We laugh about it. And they felt comfortable doing that.
Right.
And my EA, who's one of my favorite people as well, I would walk back. Her office was right next to mine. They wanted to put like sound deadening between. I'm like, no, she needs to hear everything. She's got my email. She's got my Slack. She knows all this stuff. She's the one that needs to do this.
Right.
Right. And we were joking about it. And she's like, we're just, it was, we're two people a little bit older than the rest of the folks that work there. And I was like, she's like, yeah, finally, this is how it needs to be. Right. And so my method is this. I am going to give away every bit of accountability that my direct reports can absorb, and then a little bit more. And then what I expect is, to the fullness of their ability, they're going to give away some of that accountability to their direct reports and so on and so on. With global accountability in the business, what you do is you create an environment where everybody feels comfortable to speak and comfortable to contribute because they're in the fullness of spring, as one author said.
Right.
Right? I would go out, design meeting was like this, build the next generation airplane. And we had when I got there, it was a saltine box with wings. There was way too many engineering issues to list, and we went through them one by one and fixed them. Now we built the second generation airplane, and one of my things when we were going to build it, I said, we got all these things, and at the end of it, and it's got to look effing cool. You're like, why? So because we have customers, and customers, it's the same reason nobody wanted to buy the Chrysler 300 for a long time, because it was fit and finish was terrible. And your eyes rush to the fact that the gap between the hood and the fender, the hood's not put on right. It's why the Germans walk around with FIDs everywhere when they build cars, right? And so what did the guy at Chrysler do? He went and got John Varvatos to do, designer of eyewear and clothing and stuff, to do the fit and finish for the interior of the car. And they started selling them again, right? So your mind, people visually are attracted to things. So it's got to look effing cool.
Right.
These guys did an amazing job. We went out to AUVSI, which is, it's the SHOT Show of unmanned.
Okay.
Right. And I had the plane on a stand. It was a little bit above the wall line for all the booths. And we had the lights on the edge of the plane. The guys put a little motor in there, so the props were spinning just a little bit like this. I'm walking around the show talking to people, and hey, you want to stop by the booth? Yeah, just look for the lights flashing the airplane. And it looked fast just sitting on the stand.
Right.
Right. So we build that, and everybody, we addressed a lot of problems, and we started getting better. So one of the things about being a small company is I got no people. Right? We're limited at how much we can do by the people we. So it's like, well, we're on the other side of town from the University of Michigan, one of the best aerospace programs on the planet. They put more people in space than any university except for the Naval Academy, and I think they probably got some smart people over there we can leverage. Found a guy who runs that kind of outreach program. And more importantly, one of the other folks found a STEM program that the state offered that if you're going to offer a STEM internship, the state will kick in some money. So I was paying them $10 an hour. The state was paying them $12 an hour. They were happy. And we got these amazing people. Just unbelievable. Everybody talks about young people can't do this. They don't want to work. They can't bullshit. These guys were there early. They left late. You know why? Because we gave them something valuable to do. We treated them like adults. We made them part of the team.
Got it.
Right? My only guidance was when we get these interns, don't tell them they're not supposed to know how to do this stuff. One of the first things we did is a 19-year-old kid just finished his freshman year, walked up to him with a $150,000 Trillium camera with laser seeker head and everything on it. He's looking at me like, please don't make me touch that. Right? And I go, look, we're going to make a 3D mock of that with this, fill it with BB so it has the right weight. So if you drop it, we're not going to break it. But this is what's going to go in the airplane. I want you to build a gimbal inside the airplane so we can drop it down so that we're not losing all the aerodynamic advantage we have flying this thing from where we take off to where we got to go deploy the laser.
Right.
He's like, okay. Made the little Bombay doors with a servo that worked on every way that we controlled that airplane. More importantly, understood that if he just did a standard gimbal, the camera would articulate forward and he'd have to make the hole bigger. So he basically had, so forward there was no movement to room to maneuver. In the back, he had mechanical space to maneuver. So he made it so that it rode up and down on stiff rails, but the mechanisms that allowed it to traverse up and down were hidden in the airplane. 19-year-old kid. Amazing work.
That's awesome.
Right? And it was that, to me, was that asymmetrical advantage.
Right.
Right? And when you give that level of accountability to people, they can pass it along to everybody. And it's a self-fulfilling thing.
It is.
Right? I had a 45-minute meeting on a Monday. I had a tripod desk with like rollerblade wheels on it. And I put my computer on there. I had a battery that bolted to it. And I plugged my computer. And if I had to go talk to somebody, I went to where they were. Right? Open office. People are like, oh, my door's always open. Wait until it is.
Right.
Right? But if you go to them, hey, truck comes, we're offloading the truck. If I'm not doing anything, I'm out there unloading that truck with them. Why? Because we're all in this together. right? There's in the day that goes out of style is the day that people stop being successful. And kind of the final thing I'll say in this, and this is really where anything bad happens, my job to absorb that, right? You're the leader. You're absorbing all the losses and you're passing on all the success,
That 100%.
right?
Yes.
Once everyone sees you do that, then the things get a lot better. And I always say you'll be able to tell a great leader by how often the word we comes out of their mouth. I've never heard a great leader say I.
Right.
I watched Jamie Dimon talk about the future, talk about where JP has been and where it's going. He never mentioned the word I once in 35 minutes of talking.
Yeah, it is a dangerous word because then everybody that's underneath you sees that. There's something to be said too about, and one of the pro devs I love doing is if we have something that's a pretty high profile project and somebody has done all the legwork behind it, I will have them brief it, present it.
They should, right?
Like you owned this. This is your child. And oh, by the way, I love what you said too. As a leader, it is your job to absorb the bad, and it is your job to applaud those that did the good.
Right.
That is something you don't see, and it's something that is very systemic in business. That like you walk around and you have these people that are taking credit for shit that their people did.
Amazon right now is getting rid of an entire layer of management. Right? They're not cherry picking. We got us downsized. We're going to cherry pick these 4,000 or whatever number of people. They're ridding themselves of an entire level of management. And it's the level of management that I call the lazy leader level. You got all your individual contributors, then you've got directors and VPs. In between the directors and the individual, they put a layer of manager. What are they managing? I tell you to do I tell you what they're going to do, and then you go tell them.
Right.
They don't want to deal with the day-to-day back and forth. Well, then don't be in charge.
Right.
Right. Don't invite the responsibility of leadership. Everybody wants the accolades of leadership, but nobody wants the responsibility of leadership. Right. I mean, there were times where like I would not come into work, and I'd call my EA and go, "What?" I go, "I got to deal with XYZ, whatever externality," and I don't want the guys to hear it. Or the girls to hear it that work there, right? Why? They don't need to know that, right? Their trajectory of happiness and building and executing on delivering what they do, and they're all makers,
right?
They love working with their hands, right? And from the junior person there all the way to the senior designers and everything like that, everything we did was hiring, right? And so when you look at a company like AWS is going to clean out that whole layer of management, because what Amazon has figured out, and I'm going to say, when I say Amazon, I'm going to say Bezos figured this out, because this is a thing his wheelhouse is. That's the layer of management that takes all the product of work of junior people and makes it their own to get themselves promoted. I've seen it. I right now want to so badly name a business, but I don't want to invite the litigation that comes along with it. Right. Because they've got an insane amount of engineers that can't produce a product that you can execute on. Right. I know one of the VPs didn't want to deal with 3 guys that worked in the department, so he hired a manager, largely as a buffer. What a waste of money. I don't care if you've got the money, right? You hire people to do a job, and then when they do it and they come back and say, this isn't perfect, you want to go, la, la, la. I don't want to hear no, I want to hear everything that's not perfect. Right. Because I know what works. I want to find out what doesn't work. Why? Because we want to mitigate that and we want to move on. And that's, I think, the thing. The other thing too is in hiring today, and I'll say, we talk about the Honor Foundation. Yep. I've spoken at the Honor Foundation, a few times.
Can you, just for people listening and not familiar with the Honor Foundation, kind of go over it a little bit?
So the Honor Foundation, I think it was founded by Musselman, I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. I never met him. Amazing concept of something I wish they had when I retired. All right. When I retired, you did your retirement ceremony, poked a Wile E. Coyote hole in the fence and stood around and go, all right, what's next?
What is next?
There was no guidance. There was no anything.
There was no skill bridge. There was no honor foundation. None of that
No
existed.
commit foundation.
That's right.
I mean, pick it.
Yeah.
So the honor foundation provides a 13-week training block that it's everything from how to write a resume, how to interview, how to dress correctly, how to take your vocabulary from military to civilian, right? Which that's
Huge.
I think in the SEAL community, it's a little bit easier because a lot of guys are doing non-traditional stuff. So
Right.
I think in the Army, it's especially like when you're looking at some of the support folks that they came from the regular military thing, everything's an acronym. And I don't even know what they are. I don't even know what they mean.
Right.
And it's like EIEIO all over the place.
Right.
But they do that. They do mock interviews. They take you to like all these companies, all these Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies volunteer to have cohorts go there for the day and explain what the business does, explain how it works. Here's what it takes to get hired. Here's what we're looking for. And so it's putting you in front of people that you might want to work for.
Right.
And you're getting to see the differences between being at Command XYZ and what a big company looks like.
Right.
Right. And I think it's absolutely amazing what they do. And the last time I spoke, I detest HR. I don't understand in the last 25 years how we've co-opted a cost center into being thought of as part of the value chain.
Right.
I don't get it. Right. I do get it. I don't want to, most leaders don't want to deal with the people piece.
Right.
And today what I find is I'll have people call me, dude, I just had to go through 6 interviews and then they did 2 projects for them. And then they called back and said they're going somewhere else. They just got 30 days of free labor out of you.
Right.
And your ideas. Right. 6 interviews, my behind hurts when you say that.
Right. No,
right?
No question.
What does it say to you? I know what it says to me when I hear somebody's like, oh, they're on their 6th interview. Everyone in that organization has a feet of clay because nobody's willing to stand on the thing. I think that's the person that's going to help us solve this problem. And that's who I want to go with.
And you take a swing.
Right.
Right. You take a swing. Yeah.
And HR is not there for the employee. When you get called into HR to explain, hey, yeah, you're getting mistreated, they're not there to think, they're not listening for your problem.
Right.
They're listening to see if there's legal action that they could be liable for the company.
Period.
That's it. And they're there to lower the expectation for how much you're going to get paid on entry. No, there's no other use that they have.
Yeah, it's
recruiting is a different thing, but I'm talking just in general.
No,
you can outsource.
HR
You can outsource recruiting. There's one HR person I love. She lives out in California. She worked for me at one company. Just a beautiful human being, and she was never a union rep for the employees. But when somebody had something legitimately they needed help with, she'd be like, "Hey, we got to take care of this."
Yeah.
Right.
And I agree with you though. Like one of the biggest concerns of me taking the big step, and the fit had to be right. And coming to, I never dreamed of coming to an apparel company. I'll tell you that right now. My brain spins a lot harder than this. But coming to a co-founded SEAL-owned company where innovation is expected and taking care of our community is desired, I was like, okay, I see something here I can develop this into.
Yep.
I didn't even have a job scope when I came here. I created the job scope. And now as we get larger and bigger, we are almost channelized into certain things that are expectations. And it's my job to make sure that we don't lose the zest and the DNA of what got us where we are. Because if we become like everybody else, we will be everybody else.
Right. I agree.
So
yeah, it's a complacency, right?
Right.
I think with hiring, when I look at people to hire, like I used to joke around and we'd parade everybody around the building. Like they'd come in now, if you were going to be an engineer, it was a different story. Engineers, we had a project, and I'll talk about the one for the mechanical guys, the designers and stuff. The electrical was roughly the same, and I didn't come up with this. This is the directors had come up with this, and If I thought of it, I might have come up with it, but I didn't.
Right.
So there you think. You got a bunch of tongue depressors, a bottle cap, a little metal rod, some rubber bands, and some glue, and some directions that were incomplete. And you had to build a catapult to a picture that wasn't really drawn correctly.
Got it.
What were we assessing?
Ingenuity.
No.
Thinking out of the box.
We were assessing your ability to stop and go, I don't have all the information, and go ask a question.
There you go. Gotcha.
Because it's a junior engineer. I don't want a junior engineer on something that's going to potentially
just force
fall
it
out of the sky.
Yeah.
50 pounds going at 60 miles an hour can hurt somebody.
Right.
Right? Badly. We had one guy, I just happened to be out on the floor, and I personally told him to leave. He basically slid the thing across the desk, what was his catapult, and said, hey, these directions suck. I'm like, get out.
Yep.
Like, you missed the point of the exercise, Junior.
Yeah.
You know? And so I talk about hiring like this. The individual with the discretion to take intelligent contextual action is worth 1,000 algorithms. Intensively positive with high standards, we hire for attitude and not skill. I can train anybody how to do anything.
Agreed.
I can't teach you to be a good person.
Agreed 100%.
Right?
Yep.
When Amazon in the mid 2000s was hiring 332 people a day on average, there's no wonder people walk around with a 45 gram worth of sugar from Starbucks in one hand and the HR manual in the other. They got to be aggrieved.
Right.
332 people. My goodness.
How did you vet that?
But
how did you screen
there
that?
Is. And then you wonder why you've got all these HR issues.
Right.
Now, I'll say, if tomorrow I was to meet a senior person, the CEO of AWS, we don't have the same problem set. We didn't have the same when I was there. We didn't. I'd walk out on the floor. We're designing the 3rd generation of airplane. And I had a sales model of what I wanted to do. Right. And I knew a customer we were going to be selling to, so we had to make some changes. I said, look, I want the center wing is a lift hybrid VTOL, get it off the ground VTOL with a vertical lift, and then you have a gas motor to push it. And I said, I want to move all of the electronics into the center wing. We're going to better protect it from weather and damage, because when they crash, they typically don't go in wings first. They go in nose first. The only thing up front was a pitot tube and an FPV camera.
Right.
And everything else was going to be in the center wing. I said, I want it toolless assembly, because one of our customers was a 3rd world nation. And it's not that they're ignorant, they're stupid, they're ignorant. They're just never been properly educated. And so you've got to provide a mechanism that helps them out. And I said, I want it to be that when you put the airplane together, if you've done something incorrectly, it won't fly. And so what they did is, if you put it you put it together incorrectly, the fuel cell wouldn't slide into its place. So you had no gas. Right? I'm like, genius. I go, and as always, it has to look effing cool.
Right.
Right. And they did a great job. And I said, I want everything to be able to be disassembled, so we have a smaller cube in the carrying case. More importantly, I want a second fuselage. The first fuselage is streamlined because we put sensors usually in. People want 2 things, sensors or cargo. And I said, the second one, I want like the Beluga, a big one. And they're like, well, why don't we just hang, great ideas from the people that don't build drones at our parent company. Why don't we just hang a hook or something underneath it? And I go, because we got to pay a big aerodynamic penalty.
Right.
Every time we hang shit from the bottom of this airplane. And I said, and it's going to cost me about $900 to $1,000 to make that second fuselage, and it's a $100,000 add-on.
Right.
He goes, well, nobody's going to buy it. I go, really? I said, I have 2 customers right now that are begging me because they need both, and they don't want to buy 2 $750,000 to $1 million airplanes.
Right.
They'd rather pay $900 for 1.5, because they don't do the things at the same time.
Right.
Right. And I said, this is know your customer. And I said, and it's got to look, and they're like, yeah, we know it's got to look effing cool. Right. Because the things you want, you have to articulate. Right. And in your marriage, in your relationships with people, the outcome with your kids, the outcome that you desire, you've got to enforce. Right. And you've got to do it in a positive way.
Right.
I made sure that when we get investors would want to come all the time. But they'd be in, Detroit's, whether we like it or not, Detroit's a world hub. and Ann Arbor's 45 minutes away. So people would show up and they'd be like, they'd call the parent company, go, hey, we want to go out and, and see the aerospace company. The first time they wanted to fly somebody out. And I'm like, look, if you don't trust me to walk somebody around the building, I'm probably not the guy you want to have doing it. Right. Well, if you're not doing the right thing every day and what you tell me is not what you tell the investors, sometimes,
right,
maybe that's why you want to have somebody out there to do that. Right. That's my thought on the process. There's an investment club that was, and these guys are like world renowned, bunch of like hundreds of millionaires to billionaires. They all live in one little gated community. You got to fly into to get into, literally. And they're all retired, but they just invest in companies, and to them it's a game.
Got it.
Right. And guys are like, hey, we're in town, can we come see? I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, how do I articulate that we're being unbelievable stewards of your money? Right. That's really what every CEO, number one, my paycheck wasn't anywhere near what a CEO's paycheck should be. Right. Flat out. But that's okay. Right. Because I knew in my mind, I knew where I was going. I knew what that would lead. And that's part of the game if you want to play an early stage company. Anybody that tells me you should get fair market value when you're building a company, you're not thinking correctly. Right. Because if you take in X dollars and the burn rate is largely, I'll pay top dollar for development, in a software company, I'll pay top dollar for developers because nobody believes in the phantom equity anymore. And you've got to do that. If it's my company and I'm building it, I've got to eat that because I believe in it.
Right.
Right. And so these guys would show up, and at one point when I got there was a kitchen, there was a bunch of chairs, but there was no surface to eat on. Guys were like, well, let's just go over here and buy a table. I go, I got some of the smartest engineers on the planet, and we got all this stuff out there. Can we build ourselves a kitchen table? And they go, what do you want? I go, I don't want anything. I want you guys to have a place that you want to sit down and have fun and enjoy lunch and whatever else. They made this monstrosity of a thing. We had 5-axis machines and everything, and everything else. We had a piece of spoil board. I know for machine tools, like so that the machine tool doesn't dig into the metal surfaces. You put a piece. It's like a piece of plywood, but it's aerated so that it'll hold stuff down to the surface. Right. Enough of it skims off, it becomes useless, but it's still thick enough that you can use it for any kind of surface. They took that, they smoothed it out. Then they found all the scraps of carbon, made a collage out of it, put it on there, and put it in a big giant bag, baked it onto the surface. They put it back on the table, etched the company logo in there, filled it with red resin so it stood out, and then they polyurethane the whole thing, put some legs on it. Gorgeous. And the legs that they put on it was wood from the first building that we ever were in as a company. We moved into a new thing when I got there. The first building the company occupied was a hangar from World War II. The B-26s were built in at a place called Willow Oak Airfield.
That's awesome.
And we took 2x4s from that to build the table. And it was with the purpose that I had an investor reason why. I never told them that. When we used to get the new mechanical guys, the first thing they had to do was build a chair. And they could make it whatever they wanted. And so you'd see how creative they were. There were some of them like, that's a really creative design. There was like, there's no way I'm sitting in that.
Right.
And there was, but it was this culture of building and growing and thinking. We would get investors would come in and I'd start in the kitchen. Even my EA, bizarre place to start. I said, look, what we do as a company starts here. And I kind of went through what I did with the table, and they're like, oh man, that's really cool. They start looking at it. And then you bring up, hey, this plywood or these 2x4s go back to World War II building B-26s that we took out of an old ass hangar that was going to get knocked down. Right? Then we walk past all the expensive 3D machines that they bought us, with the money they invested.
Right. And so they're kind of getting the gradual progression.
Right. And then we go out onto the engineering floor or onto where the builders are, desks and big monitors. And I was like, and it's set up. And I've been yelling. I said, Mike, you got can you get the drawings up for the next generation airplane?
Right. Of course I can.
3D spinning on a big ass 80-inch monitor. And you walk into the shop, walk past the PPE gear where one of our guys built the stand for all the PPE gear with very specific, in his mind, very specific ways to when I want to do it. How do I, kind of like firemen do things.
Right.
How do I get things on? So The last thing I put on is the helmet with the hood with the thing, and how do I get that on? And when I take it off, everything, and how do I have everything to recharge, and how does that work? And I said, everything we do here is built in-house. Here's our molds. Here's how we do it. We inverse the way we build things.
Right.
Now, and at the time I wanted to get a $500,000 machine, and it was hard to. I said, look, I'm going to have that machine. I'm going to have a guy that does nothing but manage that machine. He's also going to manage all the other machines to take that responsibility off designers and things like that. And then when that machine's not building stuff for us, we're going to outsource this and make money doing 3D parts for people that don't want to spend $500,000 on a machine.
Right.
And everybody's like, investors get that.
Right.
Parent company doesn't want to spend the money. Right. But again, it's working with this team of people and being able to do it. When I walked away, I knew that all of these folks were going to go and do great things, not because I had the influence over them, because I let them be themselves.
Right.
Right. What do you want to do? And what does great mean to you? I say that to people all the time. What does great look like to you? I've defined it as a company.
Right.
But within that, how does great affect you? Right. I mean, I've talked to CEOs. The CEO that owns a commercial real estate company. He had a stick up his butt about wanting to have somebody come in and talk. And somebody else that I know was trying to get him to do it. He's like, I can't. He goes, take a whack at it. I just called the guy and said, all right, what's up? And I listened to him for 45 minutes. And in that 45 minutes, he told me everything I need to know about what he was scared of. And so I said to him, I go, what are you afraid of? He goes, what do you mean? I go, people have fear. What are you afraid of? He said, I don't know. I said, let me help you out. You're only afraid of two things. He goes, what do you mean? I go, one or the other. You're either afraid of failure or you're afraid of success. If you're afraid of failure, I can help you out. If you're afraid of success, that's a lot harder. And he's like, well, how do you figure? And I was like, if you're afraid of failure, I can give you things that will get you past that. If you're afraid of success, you want to self-actualize. And every time you're about ready to succeed, you're going to put something in your way that you're going to trip over metaphorically, and that's going to cause you. And he's like, all right, I want you guys to come in. I know I'm putting you in a bind, with a day. I'm like thinking to myself, no, dude, you gave me everything I need to talk.
Right. He fueled it for you.
Right. But he said, I said, so where you're at now, you did 350 million last year. He goes, yeah, I'm going to $1 billion. And that petrifies me. I go, you going to $1 billion next year? He goes, no. I said, well, you went from 300 to 350 this year. So you said, why don't you go from 350 to 410 this year and do an extra 10 mil? Can make that the terminal goal. And then my strategic goal is $1 billion eventually. But don't try to eat the elephant in one shot.
Right.
And most of the problems in business are that. Right. And it comes down to first principles thinking. First principles thinking says this is, what are the things, like there's two ways to look at it. There's two ways to look at first principles. I'll do it like Elon Musk would do it. Elon Musk says, I want to launch a rocket into space. How much is that? $65 million. I don't have $65 million. Right? What parts go in a rocket? Well, those are only 2 million. Why don't we build it ourselves? Break it down to the smallest thing you can understand and go from there.
Right.
Bezos uses it, but he uses it in a different setup. And I love this, and I use this. I'm going to use this everywhere I go. When people pay me to come in and talk to them about their business, it's one of the things I can't wait to get out of my mouth. Right? And it's funny because I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm doing all this talking. Normally it's the other way around. I'm sitting there listening to all these people. But what's never going to change? At Amazon, what's never going to change? People want their shit delivered as quickly as possible. They want the box to show up undamaged, and they want it competitively priced.
Right.
Those things are never going to change.
Right.
You know how to do that. You know how to do it really well. So keep doing that. Now that we've got down, as long as we've got a couple people tending to the blocking and tackling of what we're really good at, now we can focus on other things that we want to grow and do. That's how you get Amazon Prime, Amazon Music, Amazon production studio, and everything like that. And again, then what's not going to change about this? And if you can do those two things in a business, and you buttress it up against what money I have, and I did it kind of unknowingly at my last stop with the guys because we just didn't have the money to go out and buy everything. when we hiring my EA was great because we had a collection of dingbats show up.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. They just weren't for us. Right. I needed a level of maturity and experience that I wasn't getting because it was people think it's an entry level job. To me, having an EA is one of the most important things. They manage me.
Right.
Right. And I will tell you, that's not the easiest job on planet Earth some
Right.
days. And if we called Michelle right now, she would probably be like, let me tell you a story. Right. But she had come from manufacturing. And in the first month she's there, she saved us $4,500 just in buying plastic because she stopped going to a vendor and went right to the manufacturer. Right. What's the first principle? What's never going to change? We're going to need plastic. And we're going to need it to be as cheap as possible because it's a waste byproduct of building what we sell. Whether she quantified it like that or not, when I saw that, that's how I quantified it.
Right.
Right. And we had a little drone that was like a SWAT drone. We could put kinetics on it, and it would be either putting smoke or spicy smoke, as the manufacturer used to call the CS, or it could put a flashbang on there. And the nice part about it is the drone would come in and would hit the ground with a flashbang, and everything went straight up, so you weren't pushing shit out to catch stuff on fire.
Got it.
Right. And we had different decibels, everything from slow down to get on the ground and cry while your ears are bleeding. But it took 6 little motors. She went out and said they're $40 a piece. She goes, but that's just the first round. She said, hey, what do we have to do? What do we have to buy in bulk to get the most discount? Like if you buy 2,000 at a time and you monogram them, because they can't take them back. They can't take them back once we monogram them. I put the company logo on them. That goes from $40 and change down to $11 per motor. Wow. I'm like, we'll take that.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to have enough resources to get a good deal. Right. Because what am I trying to do? I'm trying to lower the bill of materials. That's my first principle.
Right.
Right. When you're in a software company, I want whatever I'm building, if I got to integrate something, if I have whatever it is, I have to get to a point where I'm efficient with what I'm doing and why, right? And that when I say it's going to execute, it's going to execute. And whether people realize it or not, in software engineering, the software as a service in particular, integration and making that seamless from the time you say it works till the time the customer is using it is the long pole in the tent at every company, right? When you go, what kind of car do you have? I think you have a Suburban, right?
Suburban.
So you go up to the Chevy dealership. When you walk in there, they use one of 3 software programs, right? It's called a DMS, a dealer management system.
Got it.
For those people out there that are big into software, the ERP system is like, there's a global resource system that big companies use to manage the existence of their business.
Got it. Everything
from inventory to finance to payroll it's an omnibus thing. And it's largely built so that a CEO has a dashboard to look at, right? Which I don't know if we get the time in the therapy session for me to go through how effed up I think that is, right? But when you walk in, like when I go to the Volvo dealership for my Volvo, there's 8 instances of me in that system. Because if I come in and they can't find it readily because the system's hanging up or whatever,
right?
It's about customer experience, right? The reason you're going to go back or not go back to the dealer you bought a car from the next time you go by is how do I feel taken care of?
Right.
Right. But I love that. Right. That's how it should be. Right. It's customer satisfaction.
Right.
There's companies that people will turn a blind eye to a better deal because they know they're going to be taken care of.
That's right. 100%.
Right. And they should. Right. Everything in life is about how you take care of other people. I don't care if that's your spouse, your children, your friends, whatever it is. How do I take care of other people? And for all of those, you know me, I'm going to tell you, there's times where I haven't really been that good about it. Any of it. Right. I think as I've gotten older, gotten more slowed down a little bit, thought about it. People ask me to come and speak. I start thinking about, hey, how have I managed to have a much better life now than I had 5, 10, 15, whatever, how many years ago?
Right.
Well, I gave up on me. And I don't mean I gave up on me personally. I gave up on my ego.
Right.
Right.
No, that's a great point.
And that's, and so I was talking to one of these other software companies about one of these other dealer management systems and, about the duplicate problem. And Engineers like, oh, that's a really hard problem to solve. And I'm like, hold on, Sparky. I'm like, you're going to tell, so I said, there's this thing called Google and they have this tool called Gmail. And in there, you have contacts you can save. And when you go to your contacts, there's a button. Would you like to search for duplicates? So that's one button click. When it opens up, it goes through and it finds all of them. It says, do you want to look at them manually or do you want to merge? I hit merge. So at a very minimum, it's only 2 button clicks. And you're going to tell me that those engineers are the only people on planet Earth that can figure it out?
Right.
You don't want to do the work.
Right. It's done.
Right.
It's done. How do they do it?
Or they want to fix it and then do an upcharge.
Right.
Right. And it's probably the reason, like, I shouldn't be the CEO of a software company these days, because I'm like, number one, it's a massively rapidly changing business model. But there's things that you need to charge for and to make the business and to grow and to please the founders, the investors, and everybody else. But there's also things where, like, this should be expected, right? And think about all the relationships you have. You don't get mad at a relationship when people are who they are, right? I tell people, if you're an asshole, be an asshole every day of the week. I can deal with that.
It's expected. It's known.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're a bad person. That's just your personality. Is something that's different than mine, and I consider it to be adverse in how we do it. But okay, you're the same person every day of the week. Don't be Sybil. If I've got to roll the dice and guess what I'm getting when you show up, can't do it.
Right.
I won't do it. Right. And that's a business. I mean, that's as much a life lesson as it's a business thing. But think about how many people in your path you cross on a daily basis that you're hoping they're the same person they were the last contact you.
Right.
And it might be, oh, I've heard that. You've had this conversation. No, that person's a great guy. What do you mean? Okay, my interaction and yours is different.
Right.
Right.
No, you're right. Especially if it's standing the test of time. So no, you're right about that. So no, it's a lot of information. but it's a lot of experience, TK, and that's something too that that was one of the reasons why I was excited to bring it in. The level you have operated at post-military and even in military, it kind of set you up for this. There's some good learning points and stuff like that.
As much as I didn't want to go down and run targeting, it put me in a position to look at technology in a way I never thought about it and go, and you got to think, this is 2005, 2006. Like, everybody was going to work for Eric Prince at Blackwater shooting guns.
Right.
Right. I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that. I'm done. I don't, it's not like I don't have a house full of guns. Right? I don't have a phobia of firearms. I just have a phobia of getting shot at.
Right.
I had young kids at the time. I mean, my son was 8 when I retired. I probably spent in entirety, probably spent an actual year of his life at home.
No,
and I had a 2-year-old that I didn't want to miss anything she was doing.
And we all know that. I mean, me specifically, I can tell you that when we got to that point with all the floodgates that were open, that the biggest lucrative thing, I think, especially guys that spent some time in the war, there was no desire to go get shot at anymore,
No.
But it was the most financial opportunity they had when they walked away. And a lot of guys jumped on it instead of seeking what they could do with it. Like,
you know why?
Comfort level.
What aperture am I looking? Am I looking over a pistol sight, or am I looking through a sight on a 50 cal rifle? What target can I see?
Right.
Right. I mean, and I found a great, I go down some rabbit holes. I mean, you joke about this. I got some free time.
Right.
Right. And between that, AI, and just basically being able to comb the internet in a way that a lot of people are unwilling to comb the internet, I get on a topic and I got to be pulled out by my feet at the end.
Right.
Right. And I enjoy that. Right. I mean, I've never had time to do that. Now, like, 'cause we talk about like supplements and stuff like that. Okay. Well, what I know about peptides today is completely different than what I knew 6 months ago, which is completely different than what I knew 6 months before that, and everything.
Right.
Right. And that's not from watching, 30-second videos on Instagram.
No, it's from doing research.
It's you might hear something on Instagram and go,
and it triggers it.
Right. And I'm not advertising for any particular AI from. But for me personally, I like using Gemini for this kind of work for one reason. Gemini has in Google, through Google's experience with Google Scholar, right? They have an unbelievable inventory of peer-reviewed papers, and so they have that. It's in their DNA to want to have peer-reviewed studies.
Right.
And so when I go in and say, "Hey, I want to know X, Y, and Z about these peptides. Can these two coexist with each other in the same bottle in your body at the same time? If not, what's the spread between the two?" And all of those things. And I want any relevant technical research papers.
Right.
I mean, because one of my friends has young kids, and they were going to they're going to the doctors for a well visit. Well visit is euphemism for we're going to give your kid more shots. And I don't care whether you want to give your kid the shots, vaccines or not. My whole frame is you should have the option to do what you want as a parent. Right? There's more than enough evidence to say that mandating it is basically just giving money away. And so I went and did. I said, tell me the 11 most common vaccines, or tell me the most common vaccines. It ended up being 11 that the flu vaccines that are provided in the U.S. every year. I want you to separate ones by things that are not allowed in the U.S. and by things that are banned chemicals or known carcinogens, and separate all those. Every one of them had at least one known carcinogen. All but 2 of them were banned by the EU. Now, as much as I joke about the Euros and stuff like that, the one thing the Europeans got right was what do you put in your body for food and medicine? They don't allow you to mess around with it. So
that's right. That's 100% right.
It's that thing. I go to Italy, I lose weight. I come here, that you're what you manage, right?
Well, it's as simplistic as look at what a box of Fruit Loops in America versus overseas.
No, we're not getting out here till 10 tonight if you start me on that.
Yeah, I won't.
But I'll say it like this: is kind of I don't know where you want to stop on this, but there's this concept that I really like jumped in with both feet, and it's called being fully alive. All right, and how do I do that? Because the more alive I am, whether it's physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, whatever that looks like, and I mean in a positive form. What do I have to personally battle? Right? Because that's really what it comes down. You're always in a fight with yourself. Right? Because if we were perfect, we'd all be guaranteed to go to heaven, so to speak.
Right.
Right? You're always in a battle with yourself. And what's the better me that I need to be? Right? And I'll take it mostly. I have a friend that I worked for him for a while. His company was a COVID casualty. And he asked me to spin out this, we call it decision intelligence. It started as an artificial intelligence company, but everybody's using that. And this was how to use big LLMs to make sequential decisions like humans. Like if you're an infant or a toddler, you look and you say it's cold out, you put a big heavy jacket on. If you're an adult, you're like, it's 25 degrees now. What's the high temp going to be when I'm out today? It's going to be 60. Oh, I need to layer.
Right.
That's a sequential decision.
Got it.
Right. And he owns a big economic analysis firm, and he's one of the nicest human beings I ever met. Like there's times I used to feel badly about being around him because he was such a nice person. And he's an intellectual. He wrote, like they have term limits in Michigan. When he got out of school, he went to Michigan. When he got out, he started working for the then Republican governor of Michigan, and he wrote the term limits law. Right. And then he started his own economic analysis firm, largely geared at the auto industry because he's in Michigan. But just a man of like integrity and intellect, and just somebody you want to go hang out with and have dinner and have a glass of wine with. And, I look at people like that and go, okay, there's an inner demon somewhere, but he's either basically got it by a chokehold or he's learned how to manage it and everything like that. Right. How do I be more like that? Right? What's my fully authentic self? In the 4th century, St. Irenaeus said, the glory of God is a man fully alive. That's a man of suffering. Right? Because you're working to be better.
Right.
The Buddhists say it like this: pain equals suffering times resistance. How long can you resist suffering till you get to a better place?
Right.
Right? Think about it, the command. When we're at the command, what was the saying back in the day? At what level are you willing to participate? What was the answer? all in all the time.
All in all the time.
Right. And, God bless Tommy Valentine,
Tommy
right?
V,
That's the
yep.
thing, right? We created a whole foundation based on that positive thought. Right. And again, what's that is, it doesn't matter whether it's a good day, whether it's a bad day. What am I willing to participate? Now, we were talking about the participating in the brotherhood of the profession of arms and going out and doing that, right? Overlay that onto yourself. Like, at what level am I willing to participate in my own well-being and my own success? Right? There was a time where I was working I almost killed myself at one of the companies. I was working way too much. I was eating way too much. I was drinking at night, getting up, rinse, repeat, and do that for a couple of years. And next thing you know, those 44 pants you were looking out there were looking pretty good.
Right.
And I was going to have a heart attack.
Right.
Right. Which is why you see me in the gym now and why I have a very low body fat percentage and I do what I've got to do. Why? Because I don't want to suffer. I don't want to suffer physically. There's so many other good reasons to suffer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to be part of that. Right. This is really what Saint Rita spoke of. Right. It's like, there's a level of participation in life. And what do I want to do? I want to basically resist the suffering so I can, in my mind, and this is how I translate it, so that I can achieve what I believe to be personal greatness. Right. And that is, we always joke around in my house. Every day is Father's Day when you have a daughter. Right. My son is an amazing young man. Graduated from VCU, lives up in Richmond. And he's worked at a number of different jobs and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do. And I would submit that being a medium-sized white guy in America today is the worst time in history to do that.
Right.
Right. But, he went to Catholic high and we went up to Richmond to have breakfast with him one day. And he's like, I'm thinking about being a teacher. And he wants to go to one of the Catholic schools that's in thing. And he railed against the Catholic system. Right. I'm going to show them I'm not going to do my homework. The big joke in the house is my wife and him were doing his homework just so he could graduate high school. Right. And he comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to go to TCC. No kidding. Right. Because that's what you think. But he graduated with a 3.8. He treats his mom well, treats his girlfriend well. He's a good son. He's on his way. Right. And I would advocate that he doesn't think that the word soft parenting exists. Doesn't mean I was a bully, but could I have been a much better parent with him? Absolutely. Right. And I'll tell him that every day of the week. Some of it was proximity.
Right.
Right. I was gone all the time. And my daughter's a different story. She's a college athlete. Right? She plays D1 basketball in Florida. And she has a very deliberate sense of self. And I mean that in a way that she is much more mature than I ever was at that age and deals with the ups and downs of life in a way that most kids that age don't. Here's the interesting thing about that. College athletes right now are in the highest demand to be employed in America right now.
Why is that?
They know how to show up on time. Think about, who does this describe? They know how to show up on time with the right gear at the right time. Right?
Yeah, it's so funny.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
And then on top of it, they know how to accept criticism. They know how to pick themselves up by their own bootstraps.
Yep.
They know how to be part of a team. They know how to coach somebody up and think, what's the hallmark of a good special operator? When I'm doing really well, I'm going to go find somebody that's not and take care of them. Right? And what you hope for and where guys get disgruntled is when you have the selfish operator or when you have the selfish partner in a business or when you have this, like I said, I had one bad leadership experience. I know he did not mean for this to get out in front of the whole platoon, but his inner monologue got loose one time and we were talking about something and he's just thinking about it and he goes, and he looks at us, like that scared dog look.
The outside voice.
And, I'm like, because at the time, I was an E5. What are you going to do? Make me an E4 and take away all that responsibility I have? Right. I'm like, did he just say that out loud?
Yep.
Right. He's also the guy I vowed I'd never talk to again.
Right.
And I haven't. Right. But that, Jordan Peterson in this same thought, like I like to grab a bunch of different people. Jordan Peterson had a guy, I can't remember, but there's a guy, Chris Williamson, that does a great podcast. Young British man that's just very intellectual, has great guests on and everything. He's friends with Jordan Peterson. He goes to his thing. He was at an event and the guy stands up. He's like, I feel everything very deeply, right? Is it a curse or a blessing to have that level of consciousness within me? Right? Chris's thing was get that guy a podcast.
Right.
Because that's a great question,
It is a great
right?
question.
The questions we don't ask ourselves as special operators, right? Because we're big tough guys. We don't need to do that. Right. But I bet you today's kids are asking that question to themselves. And I bet you the community's better off for it. Right.
Right.
Jordan Peterson says the only way out is through. Drink more of what poisoned you until it turns into a tonic that girdles you. That is how you walk through suffering.
Right.
Right. Most people I meet that are CEOs are not ready to be CEOs. Right. I have a friend of mine that he's a venture capital guy. I met him through Monty, as a matter of fact. And Matt is charismatic young VC founder guy that just a great story. Married a professional ballerina. They are raising a young family like that. He invested in a potato chip company. And he had a founder, CEO. Things weren't going right. He had invested in it, so he took over the company when things were going because he didn't want to lose his money. And he's turned it around. He turned it around because he's an amazing human being.
Right.
Right. And for one of the VCs that we both interact with, they're like, oh, he's a founder CEO. I'm like, no, he's a founder. Right. You can be a captain. That doesn't make you the CEO. Right. Nobody's going to take that. He's a founder. Nobody can take that away from him. He's got his equity in the company and everything like that. But we're going to find out whether he's a CEO. Right. Are you an effective leader? Are you an effective articulant of a message that makes people better tomorrow than they were yesterday while attempting to do the same for yourself? If you're not, don't get in the high stakes business of wanting to be a leader of a business.
Time will tell.
Right?
Time
Trust
will
me,
tell.
when people are miscreant,
Right.
I let them go. I don't have time for that. But it's not like it's all hugs and kumbaya. But what I can say wholeheartedly, and I do it much better today. So those of you that work for me in earlier companies, sorry. Right? I didn't know how. It's still learning. I'm sure they're doing better
Right.
today than they were when they worked for me as well. Right? That's just part of growth. I'm going to put you in a position to be successful. That is my only goal in life. That is my purpose in life. That not to run out of money. Right?
Right.
Be a good steward of the finances that you have. Right?
Right.
But I am going to put you in the best position I know how to be successful. And I'm going to ask you questions along the way because what you think is success and what I think is probably different in some cases.
Right.
And I want you to have success. Right? I take pride in the fact when a CEO of another company calls me up and says, hey, we're thinking about hiring this guy. What do you think?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, one of the folks I worked with last company, he was the guy that really highly educated, kept to himself all the time. Built all the wings, all the laminar surfaces for what we do. Calls me up and says, I'm thinking about taking this job. And it's in the race industry, and it's building laminar surfaces for big race cars. He's like, the guy that owns the business is getting old. He wants me to take over the company. Like, I said, what's the issue? I don't think I'm ready. And I'm like, if you're not, I'll come and work for you. He's like, well, no. I said, no, you'd be the leader. I said, you don't need it. I said, I'm always here. If you want to talk about something, advice is cheap with me to you.
Right.
I said, don't tell your friends that don't know me that it's cheap.
Right.
I said, and same when you hear other, one of my oldest friends now, and it was a guy, you talk about this, the ebb and the flow. How many of your former peers at the regiment do you still keep up with on a daily basis or a weekly basis?
A good select few, but
Yeah.
some are.
That list used to be this big.
Now it's
very thing. And that's part of life, right?
It is part of life.
That's especially as you get older.
Yep.
Who do I value? I value my time.
You know the other crazy part about that is who I valued when I was there is different than who I value now.
Yeah.
Because
people show who they are.
Well, I've grown.
Well, no, you've grown.
I've grown.
Or they haven't.
But
actually, that's an unfair statement.
Yeah.
They've grown in a way that is incompatible with where you're going.
Yeah. And also the perception of when you're there versus once you leave and do other things, get other inputs, see other people do other things. You're like, fucking dude was awesome. And I didn't even realize it when I had him.
You know where some of the this is TK's view of where the schism happens after you retire. When you're on active duty, everybody's got a job, everybody's got a rank. And usually the job skills are attached to that rank,
Right.
right? It's pretty, and that's not like, I'm not breaking new ground. So if I'm an E6 or I'm an E7 and I'm an AFF jump master, I'm all this, and then when we go out to Pinal, everybody's going to listen to me. Why? Just because I've got all the quals. And we can quantify one person against the next. And it's ego driven. Oh yeah, I know more than that guy did. Why? Because here's all the schools he's been to. He's only been to this many. I've been to this many. I've done this. I've done that. And so every person can insulate their ego because it's easy to tell who's doing what and where.
Right.
When you get out and everybody goes in their own, they start to find their own level, as I call it. And they go in that direction. I've had people ask, I've heard I said to one of my guys, guy I don't talk to anymore. I probably never will again because it's one of those things where it's like, why? Like, you've shown that you're not a good steward of my time. Why am I going to give you more of it?
Right.
But he came to me and he said, hey, this person's saying that about you. This person's saying that about you. I go, first off, and this was a big step in my life where I think I got a lot better. What other people think of me is none of my business. I said, but here's the question I have. I don't really care what he has to say about me, but what I want to know is why was he so comfortable telling you?
Right.
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 And I was at an event I didn't want to go to. I was team guy shamed into going to an event, and largely because I had to stand up and say, people like, hey, this one of the guys that did it. I was like, I want to do that. And Captain Benny Green, just Captain Green, he's like, you will go. I'm like, dude, I'm retired. I don't really I'll come to your house. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be rolling around in the yard with an old man. So yes, I'll go. I'm walking by and there was something said about some team guy on a podcast. And it was one of the guys that was being litigated against or whatever. And he's like, hey, I heard what you said about so-and-so. And this guy retired as an E6. You got to fucking try to do that. And this man's a team guy. Right? I mean, it's almost impossible.
Right.
Right. But he also knows everything. Right. And I just don't have time for that. Do I think he's a bad person? No. Was he a good operator? Yeah, he's a great operator. But don't come at me at a fundraiser.
Right.
I don't really care.
Right.
And he was going on about the Brotherhood. And I said, and I alienate and irritate a lot of team guys with it. I said, a lot of times since the Brotherhood today isn't about, it said, unless you're talking about when a guy dies, when a guy gets hurt, we got to take care of his family, all that stuff. Then yes, for sure. I've got the Brotherhood. But for the rest of us, I grew up in New England around the Italians, like the Cosa Nostra.
Right.
We use the threat of the Brotherhood to keep people from talking about shit.
Right.
Right. And I said, and I articulated that. And he comes up with something and he goes, well, I guess that's why I never see you out at the bar. And I was like, I guess that's why I never see you at the bank.
Love it. I'll say this, and I'm going to have you come up with some closing comments, but here's my perception of life after when you've retired. First of all, I think that it's great when we're all together in our select groups and we relive some of the stuff we've done together. That's kind of fun because it's no different than an NFL team that won the Super Bowl and they get together and the guys are talking about the game, the season, whatever. It's the same thing, right? And we all get it. The thing I note with the people that I put out of my life, if somebody else is talking about your legend, that's fucking great. If you're the one promoting your own legend,
correct,
that's the guy I don't want to be around.
Right.
And I'm speaking right at people that they know what I mean. Like the people that are the self-efficacy of what a great person they were and look at me and the me. I got no place for that.
Look at the bio. Look at the bio I think.
Yeah, I know.
It says the bottom is, and I was a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's why you're here, dude.
I tell like when people want to hire me, I go, if you think that anything I did when I was in the Navy is relevant to leading your business today, you're sadly mistaken. I said, yeah, are there things that I've carried, lessons learned about leadership and dealing with people and stuff that I carry with me? Yes. But for the most part, I've also crafted it in a way that if for no other reason, then you're not, you're not contractually obligated to hang out with people in the civilian world.
Right.
If I'm an E5 and I don't like my boss, I gotta wait my boss out. If I don't like it in the civilian world, I can vote with my feet and leave and go get another job.
Right.
Right. So that immediately changes the dynamic.
The other thing too,
I have less of a problem with guys running their mouth about themselves. Right. It tells you who they are. Right.
it does very quickly.
But, and be an advocate for yourself. Right. But be an advocate for yourself about things that are relevant. Talk about what we did last week. Right. That's the thing. Like if you did something really cool last week and you want to share it with somebody, please, by all means, do. Right. But what I get is where I think, and I can't speak for any of the other soft outfits, but with the SEAL community, when people look at you and they're like, okay, I get it two ways. I've heard, and these are things I've heard other people say. It's like, how does he think he's qualified to go do that? Because again, you can't it's not an E5, and okay, now he's a senior chief. He should be doing that.
Right.
Right. Now he's a warrant 5. He should be doing that. Right. No. How does he think he's doing that? Because there's no playbook of what I've done with my life. Right. And I think when people get out, and I fell prey to this, you get out and you get angry. Right. When I talk to the Honor Foundation, when I go in there, I try to go, here's all the positive things. Here's everything they're saying. What's the grit between the tiles that hold it all together? Right. That's what I want to talk about. Right. There's a guy that he retired, SEAL retired, I don't know, 5 years ago now. It's been a while. He calls me up and he's like, hey, I put him through Green Team. And he's like, think about taking this job. It's commercial real estate. And when people start off with how much they're going to get paid, that's the canary in the mine for me. He's like, guy said he's going to pay me $250 a year and teach me how to do commercial real estate. I go, be careful. And he's like, why? The CEOs have a lot of latitude to entertain financially, right? If they think somebody can help them out, they have a lot of latitude to bring one person in, sit around with them for an hour, get some information, and write it off as a business. Don't make the assumption that because you're getting an interview at a company or somebody says they want to hire you, that they actually do. You have an inordinate, the mirror you look in is a clown mirror because you live in Virginia Beach, and when the clown mirror you see is there's team guys standing all around you when you look in that mirror because you live in Virginia Beach or Coronado.
Right.
Go to Iowa and see how many team guys there are. Right? Because of the Stolen Valor Act, the statistics are there. Your opportunity is greater to meet and befriend an NFL player than it is to ever meet a living Navy SEAL. And it's a hard thing to get people to understand because if you're in, like I said, if you're in Virginia Beach, you're in Coronado.
They're everywhere.
My daughter went to college. The first time she's ever put a debit card out, and they've not all been Navy Federal.
Got it.
Right? She's in Florida. She's in Central Florida. She's not in Jacksonville or Tampa.
Right.
Right. And that's really where that starts. And so what fuels anger? I think I should be making X. And I tell guys, there's a great guy, Peter Gallagher, I think is his name. I know his last name's Gallagher. He's a professor. He speaks all the time. And he's like, all these people tell you, follow your passion. The guy that tells you to follow your passion is already a billionaire, and he made it in iron ore smelting, something boring, right? And find something that you're good at, that you're in the 90th percentile at, that can pay you, and then
fuel that.
And then then make that your passion of taking care of your family,
right?
Or whatever it is.
No, it's funny you say that. I'm going to close on this. Recently, I did interviews, and it was for a position, and I had in the 11 people interviewing for one position, I had 3 team guys. The 3 team guys all bombed the interview. All 3 of them came in and told me what they were worth financially. They could not tell me what they could do in the interview. And I had to look them all in the face and go, do you realize just about fucking everybody in this city I don't need somebody that can do CQB.
Right.
I don't need somebody that can jump out of an airplane at night with NVGs. This is what I need. And you did not present this in the interview. Good luck. Because even if you go to a place that needs those skills, the way you presented yourself, that's your only skill.
Right.
And that is not what I'm looking for. So to me, I mean, anybody that's still hanging with us and all that, yeah, you're very unique. But guess what? If 5 of you interview and all 5 of you, that's all you can do.
Yeah. You should have never
No,
retired.
I hired a firefighter.
You should have never
I
retired.
hired a firefighter for that position.
Yeah, you should have never retired.
That crushed the interview.
Yep.
But anyhow, TK, I'm gonna have to get you back on here. A lot in that head of yours.
I know some days that's good, some days it's bad.
No,
when you get it loose.
What I think's really different about this podcast than all the others we've done is I'm actually going to be reaching out to a lot of people I know in business and industry, and I'm going to be like, this was a really good informational for me too as well on team development and strategy at higher levels. It's easy for us to develop the junior leaders.
Yep.
You were really talking about developing senior leaders in this one.
The next generation of amazing doers.
Yes, sir.
Right. And I tell people all the time, don't ever ask for a raise, ask for a better career. Form follows function.
Right.
Right. And if you're going to ask for a raise, there's a way to do it, but you're asking about your career first off.
Right.
Right. And understand in the business world, kind of the last thing is you're probably going to move around a lot if you want to be successful and get promoted, because companies typically, I'm an anomaly where I like to promote from within because I already know who you are.
Right.
Right. And you're a safe harbor for me because I know I'm getting somebody that, whether it's right or it's wrong, if we're being successful and we all think the same about our success and we're honest about what we're not doing right, I want that person to be the next. I want him to go find his replacement.
Right.
And I want him to train his replacement like I trained him, and so on and so forth. Right. In most cases, though, if you're known as that person that's the steady Eddie that gets shit done every day of the week, you're never going to get promoted, because if they do, who's going to do the work that they've been relying on you to do?
Right.
And you're probably going to get a 20 to 30% increase to go somewhere else
and grow.
Right.
Right.
And hear other voices.
Right.
Right. Go find an amazing. They're out there. There's a lot of amazing leaders.
Yeah, and just the message there too is, if you want it, get out of your comfort zone. Be ready to move. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I tell you, you look at, there's so many people I know that when I've been at events, and I did an event years ago called Dawn or Doom. I don't even know if they do it anymore. Purdue University used to do this. And it was a great event. You'd either get assigned a topic or you could pick one. And you had to argue whether the world was going to change positively or negatively from this, whatever it is. And there'd be people from the physics department there. I picked social media. And they let me get loose for an hour about it. And I think this was in 2018. There wasn't enough time. Like, people weren't getting agitated. The cancel culture wasn't what it was then, but it was still there, right?
Right.
I had everybody from college students to the provost of the university in this room with about, 2,000 people, maybe a little bit more. I can't stand on a stage for a long period of time. I'm down in the crowd with everybody. And I finally just look at this, we've been having a great time here today, and nobody's wanted to get up and leave. So there's no social media feel to it, right? We're talking about it, but we're not living it. I said, I feel comfortable. I just want to tell you guys, and this is at a public university in the United States of America. I said, I'm against abortion. And I watched a lady cross her arms and start rocking. I'm like, oh my goodness. And people were like, you could visibly see people trying to scram. And I go, okay, stop. How many of you wanted to get up and run out of the room? And I said, raise your hands. I said, I'm not faulting you for this. You have an opinion. And about half ago, every one of you would have canceled me on social media. How many of you wanted to ask why? One guy raised his hand. I go, that's what we're missing in America today. We're missing it in business. You either go in and have the opinion of the leader, because they start with, I'm going to talk first. I'm not going to talk last in the meeting.
Right.
Right. And I've taken to using the Bezos approach, where you have an email, you don't tell people what you're talking about. they get a piece of paper when they go into the meeting and they read about it for 20 minutes and then you talk about it. That way the opinion's fresh, it's hot. I want to get emotions. I don't want you to curate your thoughts. With AI and social media and everything we do is curation.
Right.
I want how you feel viscerally, because when you feel viscerally, you cancel me, right? Or you up select and promote me on social media, right? That's life these days, and because it's that translation.
It is.
Right. And then I said, why do you think I'm thing? And so people are like, oh, you talked about your kids going to Catholic school. It must be a religious thing. I go, no, they go through this idea. I go, I'm adopted. And if Roe v. Wade would have passed in 62 instead of 72, I might not be here. That was acceptable to everyone because it was selfish.
Right.
Right. That's the takeaway I had. The provost of the school, she was like 65, 60, a bit older than I was. And she was, you could tell she was like cold sweat, had a panic attack because it was happening on her campus.
Right.
I don't ever want that to happen in a business. I mean, that's an extreme example, but I want your opinion. I don't have to agree with it, but I have to be respectful.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things in soft we're very good at. Right? I rail against the community for a lot of things. One of the things, kind of to leave everybody with it, one of the things that you're going to take away, this is to all the soft folks out there, it doesn't matter what service, you're good at some things that are very, very prescient and wanted in the business space, and you don't know it. Number one, you know how to work with young people. E3s are the same age, you got older. Yep. But you learned how to listen to their music, understand the language, everything like that. You know how to get young people to do what they're supposed to do. One. And then most importantly is you understand how to mitigate risk. Now, for the most part, in the military, it's physical harm. I don't care whether it's financial, industrial, legal, whatever it is. Whatever you go out and you get a specialty in, like say, I want to focus on this in the business world.
Right.
If you have a fine-tuned ability to mitigate risk, you are of value to a company.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether you're an E7 or an 07. Right? If you can look holistically at a problem and break it down into its small parts, right? What you said about tandem jumping. If you looked at somebody jump out of the back of an airplane with a tandem rig on, they're like, there's no way they should be doing that. Right?
Right.
In fact, Gino Peluso said that to me the first time he saw me jump out with a tandem rig. He was like, I can't believe they let you do that. How do we mitigate that down to rate? We talk in terms of TTPs.
Right.
Right. But in the civilian world, but and your ability, and you're going to lose the ability. If you don't exercise this when you retire, you're going to lose this ability quickly. Your ability to be reasonable and listen to another person's opinion that you either respect or semi-respect. The semi-respect is harder.
Right.
Right. But you're good at it in the military, if for no other reason than, you're an E78 and you got to listen to an 05. You go, okay, I don't agree with that, but now's not the time. Right? Because if it is the time, I'm going to get in trouble.
And you get conditioned. But
that's what I'm saying. People don't think about all this whiz bang stuff. Like you said, they come in, I'm good at CQB, I'm good at this. Well, no. What are you? I'm good with people. I'm especially good with young people, right? And that's the big thing. 20+% of almost 30% of the class of 2024 college students graduate have already been fired from their first job. Right?
Right.
And everybody blames the kids. I just told you I had 20s and young 30-somethings coming out the ying when I was running an aerospace company, and I couldn't tell you who the best one was because they were all great. And if I could have afforded to pay every one of them the money they truly deserved, I'd have paid them twice.
Right.
Because they got it. But why? Because they're engineers, they're disciplined. Right? You have a level of discipline that most other folks on planet Earth don't exhibit, don't have. If you can go in there with the other thing too is if you show up as a Navy SEAL, and I've gotten this in job interviews, you never once talked about being a SEAL. Well, is it relevant to what we're doing here today? Right? If you can abate that thought in your head and you understand what you're good at, which is risk mitigation, I'm good with young people, and I have the ability to have some emotional restraint to listen to other people's opinions.
I love it, man.
You are employable.
You are employable.
And go to the Honor Foundation and let them do the finishing touches on you. Teach you how to wear a suit, teach you how to go to an interview, teach you how to fill out a LinkedIn and write a resume.
Right.
I'm underselling that. I can't. When Matt and Bob watch this, I feel badly because I can't short of putting my Superman cape on and running around, I can't oversell the value they provide. And every time I'm afforded the honor to come and talk to those folks or even be around them, I want to leave people with this, is there's so many tools that folks of my generation weren't given. And it's a gift that these folks show up every day and want to do this, and they're loud and proud about it. And now they've got campuses all over. I think it's 12, 13 campuses. They've got them all over the country.
That's awesome.
Every Spec Ops unit now from Tampa to McCord is covered.
Fantastic.
And between, right? And they're not getting rich off this. They don't want to. They want to make sure you're a better human being when you go to the civilian workforce.
Which is something that it didn't exist.
Right.
So,
and it's why you should hug them every time you see them.
Right.
Right. And I don't mean metaphorically. I mean,
I know
in a creepy, don't touch me way, because
we call that an ass out hug. All right, TK.
There's none of that.
I've got something for you. From the Brotherhood there. Anybody comes on this podcast gets a HOTWASH coin.
Awesome. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
It has been a true pleasure having you on here. I will tell you that literally I was looking at timestamps on my clock back there of things you said, because I'm going to go back and take some notes from some things you said. There's some pearls of wisdom in here.
Thank you.
And anybody that listen to this, I'll tell you right now, TK is on social media. He's like me. He does it because it's a function of where we are today. But there's no question in my mind with what he just put out here. I don't care what level you're operating at, from a college grad to a CEO, there was something to take out of here. So, brother, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And just know that I do fully intend on getting you back here one day, because you opened up Pandora's box with me on a lot of thinking. And I think you've got some really cool ideas and stuff out there. So, man,
tell me what that looks like, what you're thinking about. And
we'll go there.
It's kind of what I do for other people. You tell me what's important to you, and if I can speak articulately on it, I'll let you know that. If I can't, I'll try to find you someone that can.
Appreciate that. That's the cool thing about the network. I said that with Mark O'Neill. With people that have been around as long as we have, I could call one of 5 people right now, and I could be like, do you know a Border Patrol guy in Arizona and a taco stand in Tucson? And I'll get both.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and people are going to be real with you. It's like, I can talk about it, but I got a guy that really knows what's going on.
And they'll push you to the right guy.
And that's, I think, when you need people to help out around here, when whatever it is, it's, you've got a network of people that all of us want to see each other succeed.
Right.
And if you don't, you're out of I went so far, just to kind of lose, I went so far as to change my phone number, about 6 months ago. I was glad I did it at the time, because if you really want to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, whatever, you can find me.
They can find you.
Right. And you can message me. That's not hard.
Yeah. But
again, it's after 30 plus years of having that phone number, 20 of which in the public eye of leadership of running companies, it's, the people that are there, I've reached out to them and gave that to them to direct. I might have one or two I got lost.
I get it. And you find it.
But you know what I didn't have? I had 0 text messages leading up to the election. I mean, I'm an adult. I know how I'm voting.
Yeah.
Right. And people vote however you want. Just go vote. But
the funny thing,
but I don't need somebody to text me and remind me that I got to vote.
The funny thing you say about that is, when I left Damag, I'd had that phone number for 15 years. I had 13,000 contacts in it because of what I was exposed to. I got a new phone number. I passed it to who I want. Yes, I did lose a few people. And we ended up, most of them they come back. They come back. You find them, especially in this community.
Or you reach out on Instagram and go, hey, I'm a moron. I changed my phone number and I lost your contact.
But the greatest thing in the world is I've never gotten a text message again for, hey, Bruno, can I get Patriot tickets? Hey, Bruno, who do you know?
Yeah.
All that annoying shit went away.
Right.
So, all right, TK, everybody, thanks for tuning into the HOTWASH.
Thank you.
Yeah. A great opportunity to have him here. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the HOTWASH by Born Primitive Tactical. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us at Born Primitive Tactical. I'll see you next time.